For being here with us tonight. I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Mr. Palladino, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Trustee Dattis. Trustee Darrow.
Here.
Trustee Jacko. Trustee Jacko.
Here.
Trustee Velez.
Here.
Trustee Williams.
Here.
Vice President Benamini.
Here.
President Muniz.
Here.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of this board, except where specifically exempted by law, at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having same advertised in the Belleville Times. Also, notice of this meeting has been mailed to the members of the Board of Education, the Borough Clerk, all elementary schools, the middle school, the high school, Hornblower Early Childhood Center, and posted on the district website. Also, this meeting is being televised via the district's YouTube and Facebook pages.
Okay, Mr. Palladino, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion, actually, to approve the June 19th minutes, please?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We don't have anything for student government at the moment. We're going to move on to the superintendent report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see everybody in the July meeting. Hope everyone had some time away from work and spent some time with family. And, you know, our kids are hopefully excited to come back. I know we've been working very hard as an administration, and the teachers, para, secretaries, custodial units, everyone, the bus drivers have been driving, helping out with the summer camp. So everything's been going great. We've had a lot of construction going on. If you've noticed recently at some of the elementary schools, we have new playgrounds, which was a promise that we made several years ago. So we're almost there. I think we have a few left. We had some issues with some sewer pipe in the high school. We had to take out some sewer pipe, which was end of life. And we're working on the small cafeteria at the high school right now with renovations, which the board approved several years ago. So everything's kind of full blast going through. Unfortunately, we had our bid on the agenda tonight. We have rejections for bids that were accepted. Was it July? What date was that? 21st?
Tuesday.
This past Tuesday. That's right. Excuse me. Last Tuesday. Bless you. With regard to bids for the middle school project, they came in pretty high. So we have on tonight for the board to reject those bids, and we're going to go out and scrub the data a little bit and scrub the designs a little bit and make sure we come back in with a design that we can afford as a board and as a community. Again, we do own those properties already, but unfortunately concrete costs have gone up. I don't know why, but pretty drastically, so we have to reduce some of the concrete. And those of you who've been kind of following us, because I know we have some new faces in the crowd tonight, but those of you who've been following us with all the great stuff that's been happening, all the progress, you know that retaining wall for the old King's property is pretty big, so there's a lot of concrete in there to make the campus the way we think we'll be able to connect the two buildings, et cetera. So we're going back out. So Mr. Palladino and I have a meeting coming up. We'll then advise the board, and we're going to go out for a second round. Again, we're still confident that things are going to happen, and if that doesn't work, we always have a plan C and a plan D. So that's where we're at. But progress. Very excited again that the summer's going so well. Knock on wood. And hopefully we continue to make all the strides that we made going into the end of last year and moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tomko. Mr. Palladino, if you'd like to give the monitor's report.
Sure, just a couple of points from Mr. Egan. He's watching via YouTube and the district streaming services. I know you guys know I say that all the time. He's reviewed the agenda with the superintendent and myself, supports all the recommendations we've both made pertaining to personnel, finance, and purchasing. And then lastly, he took a tour of the construction projects with myself end of last week, and he's very pleased with the progress the district is making. So he's looking forward to September.
I like that.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the superintendent's contract. If we want to go ahead and do I need to motion for that? Is that, or can we just move to that?
I don't think so.
No, right? We're good, right?
Jonathan, should we motion a public hearing?
Is that needed for this portion?
No, you can just open it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to open discussions on the superintendent's contract.
I'll do the first crack at it.
Yeah. Would you like anything? Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I think it's important to talk about a few things in the public session with regard to the contract. I appreciate that the board approached me moving forward and looking to solidify that 5-year strategic plan on the agenda tonight. You see 2 bargaining unit contracts. We have the administrators hopefully coming up soon too, that are 5-year contracts. I think the whole idea is to collectively do a 5-year strategic plan, and I accept that hopefully the board majority is in line with a 5-year commitment with regard to this district again moving forward. This was posted more than 30 days in advance. The board then negotiated in good faith with me with regard to some of the parameters, which I'll go over, and I did provide for everyone on I would call it a cheat sheet, I guess, because everybody's been talking about it, everybody's been interested in it. So I gave you a little cheat sheet on here so you didn't have to kind of fiddle through it. Again, usually some of these things that are out there need to be talked about or discussed before the board gets to vote with regard to a hearing, et cetera. So with regard to the negotiation process, again, it was posted, it then was negotiated, it then went to the county superintendent. We're at a different level here in Belleville because we still have a state monitor. So it also goes to the State Department, the Department of Ed through the state monitor, who also approved the contract. So we have those approvals as well. And then basically is discussed with the full board, which is also is my right because I'm also part of the negotiation process as well. So my rights are protected as well for that. Once the full board sees the contract and discusses it, then I decided to speak to the board about allowing the public to see it prior, which is, there's no statute that says it has to happen, to make that very clear, but I'm glad we were able to do that. While we were in closed session, we took a 2-minute break to do that. And again, I think this is a really incredible opportunity for everyone here to kind of continue to work together with regard to also the 5-year contract that hopefully the board will approve tonight for the teachers and the paraprofessionals, which has just been an incredible journey with them negotiating this. So the highlights are very simple. There's nothing here that's something that's out of the ordinary for what we've kind of done here before one another time. The contract will be extended to 2028. Right now there's 3 years left on the current contract, so all it does is extend it to 2 years. The first 3 years, so that's the next 3 years of the contract, will remain exactly the same. So the next 3 years there's no change whatsoever. Same percentages, same stipend allowances for degrees, for travel. I get $25 for traveling throughout the town in my own car. a month, different things like that. Degree stipends, no change at all. Whatever was negotiated before in good faith still remains the same. The next 2 years, or the last 2 years of the contract, we will mimic exactly what the contractual agreement is for the teachers that they negotiated in good faith. So I would be getting the same thing any other employee of the major bargaining unit will get here, percentage-wise. And the only other addition to those last 2 years, or an amendment, is an increase to the degree stipend, which the administrators have realized and have benefited from for the past 3 years. So in saying that, administrators who have 2 master's degrees get extra money or more money because they hold a separate expertise. When I have 5 degrees, I think it's just fair in the last 2 years that it's more of a principle thing, that I get the extra $750 a year. So, which is basically $75 per working month of the school year, not including the summer. So that's it. The rest of the contract remains in its entirety, except for the fact that the board has negotiated with me to remove my tuition reimbursement. That's something that's been in my contract and I've utilized every year that I've been here. The last tuition reimbursement from the board for me that was very appreciative of me was $74,000. I'm already on this old contract, was ready to enroll in some courses in another program. I was just in Columbia recently. I very much so believe in continuing to take courses so that our teachers continue to take courses. I have to model the way. I have to lead by example. We also want our students to make sure they get higher degrees. The board and I, sitting down for the next 5 years, have decided that that's something that we'll be taking out. So that's at least $20,000 a semester. So if anything, there's a realized savings to the board. So this is that conservative contract that everybody's been talking about fiduciary-wise. Probably most people in my field would be saying to themselves, why would you take that out? It's already been in there. But that was the negotiation process that was back and forth. I think it's very fair. I think it shows that we're dedicated to working these next 5 years. We were making big strides here prior to COVID. Our scores were almost doubling in certain areas, and then we hit what everyone else hit. We hit the learning loss parts that all these other schools are talking about on your social media traps and all those other things. We're very excited about what we did. We're very excited about some of the scores that are coming through. They're preliminary scores, especially in math. Do we have way to go? Of course we do. Some of that progress stopped, again, because of COVID. But I will say that we did outrank in our middle school, which was the black eye since I got here. We outranked the Nutley Middle School and the Bloomfield Middle School. So I'm very proud of that. But nobody seems to be mentioning that too much. So again, those are the highlights. There's a lot of highlights here in the district. There's a lot of positive things, a lot of progress that's been made. So again, I appreciate the fair process that this board has shown me, even the candor and also the collective confidentiality when there were all these calls for people to kind of understand what the negotiation process or what was in the negotiation process without even caring about my side of that before we all met in a quorum to discuss it. So again, I digress, and back to you, Mr. President.
Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak on the superintendent's contract? Anyone at all? You can just come right up to the microphone, name and address, and speak on anything you'd like to discuss.
Jeff wants to go first.
Jeff, you're up first. Mr. Frantantoni.
Good evening, Vincent Frantantoni. Is this on? Yeah. All right. Well, I'll make it very brief tonight. This is embarrassing. This is the 6th contract in 8 years. It's a shame not one of these contracts has gone to completion, and we keep giving more money. Now, Dr. Tomko stated he was pleased to give the information to the public. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. He's talking while we're trying to read an 18-page contract. So how was the public given this ahead of time? It was posted when? When? Well, all right. See, that's another thing. I spoke to the county superintendent today. I don't think he believed me of what's going on is so that the citizens no longer have a right to speak and get answers. We're told just open your mouth, ask your questions, sit down. And I told him we don't get answers, and then I have to be rude and yell for my seat. I didn't get my answers. A few months ago, Dr. Tomko gave the test scores, the state report card, and they were down in the dumps, and all he kept saying, oh, that's bad, but we'll have to do better. I forget how many times I wrote on the agenda, how many times he says, we'll have to do better. Just a little glimpse of this. The English language arts, the middle school scored 35.3%, way below the state lowest rank of 49. The high school, 34.2%. In mathematics, even worse, the middle school, 14.1%, the high school, 10.4%. The main purpose of education is teaching kids how to read, how to write, how to do math. Sports is wonderful, but that's not the primary goal. It's a supplemental thing, which is nice, and I encourage it. I'm former director of recreation, but that's on the town level. So we're doing all these sports things, and these are the embarrassing results. Mr. Velez had the courage, I don't know his reasons, he voted against the last contract renewal. Well, it wasn't a renewal, it was just a change and all. And it's really a shame. It's really a shame that we just played these games and give him another raise and all, and he's not that the monitor approved of the contract, he said. Well, I don't know how fast the monitor, if you just said you were still finalizing things at the last minute, when did the mysterious ghost monitor have time to review this contract? The county superintendent. I asked him a few questions, and again, I've dealt with him for many years, decades and all, and in my opinion, county superintendents are just rubber stamps. They haven't got a clue. I was with United Taxpayers in New Jersey years ago. We had over 40,000 members and all, and we were fighting to get rid of county superintendents. They're useless, as in tonight. This contract just comes here tonight, yet the county superintendent says, oh, I read the contract. I says, I was told they're still making revisions to it. Let me call Dr. Tomko. I don't know if he called you this afternoon, Dr. Tomko. But again, it's after all these years, it just gets worse and worse. And you board members, if you approve this, another revision, like I said, it's so embarrassing. 6 5-year contracts. Well, the first one was 3 years and all that. So it's a shame. And then it's a shame he's not getting education reimbursement for going there. Well, my daughter paid a lot of money. I paid a lot of money. And then she went for her master's degrees and spent $60,000 out of her own pocket. My son's got 2 masters. He paid for them out of his pockets. I've got friends and other relatives who paid for it out of their pockets. So I'm tired of paying for your education, Dr. Tomko, when we keep getting these new contracts which benefit you immensely. So I'm asking you board members, have the courage to say, no, let's finish the existing contract. Thank you, and probably it'll fall on deaf ears, but maybe courage will be injected into some of your heads tonight. Thank you.
So before someone else comes up, and sorry, before someone else comes up, I think it's ironic that the very person who's at the microphone and telling us that he's consistently told to sit down and that he doesn't have a voice, just had an opportunity to stand up there and give us everything you were feeling, and you weren't interrupted, and you told us everything you were feeling. But I have to correct a number of possible misunderstandings. At a minimum, they're misunderstandings. And the first is that the first thing you said was that the contract was not posted. That's not accurate. The contract was posted about an hour before the meeting. Now, some will say, maybe even you, an hour before the meeting is not enough time to review. And that's a fair criticism, except to say that the board had not agreed yet on whether or not it intended to vote tonight. And so the discussion that you had with the county superintendent, where you say that you told the county superintendent that the board was still making revisions, it's not a matter of making revisions, but if the board tonight decided that the contract which was presented before the board was not one that it was comfortable voting on, then there would be nothing to present to the public tonight. So the document does not actually become public until the board finalizes it. Now, the county superintendent approves it for the consideration by the board. The board can't even consider a contract in this district and every other district in the state until the county superintendent has approved it. So once the county superintendent approved it, the board can decide whether or not it intends to move forward. There are some districts, and I've experienced this personally, where the county superintendent approves a proposed contract and the board does not approve it. That happens. So the board wasn't still making revisions, but it could have had it decided to do that. But once it became clear in executive session, we purposely addressed this at the beginning of executive session, which the board generally stays in for an hour and a half. The board intentionally addressed the contract at the beginning of closed session so that it could give the public as much time as possible. And I understand that copies were handed out or that it was posted about 55 minutes or so before the meeting, because that's when we finished our conversation and we had enough information to know, no votes were taken in closed, we haven't had the vote yet, but we had enough information to know that this would be considered tonight. And last thing I want to say is under 18A 1111, which is the statute that governs notice and hearing of a superintendent's contract, the board is required to notice the public that it intends to amend the contract. Now, I know this is a new contract, but it's replacing an existing one under state law. The courts have deemed that that means it's an amended contract. So that's the first thing. The other thing it requires is 10 days notice of a public hearing. Because the 10-day notice also falls within a 30-day notice, we provided that notice more than 30 days ago. I don't know exactly when that was sent out, but more than 30 days ago. But beyond that, the issue here is whether or not a copy of the contract should be given to the public. And the answer is it can be at the point where the board knows it's going to be considering it. But the board did not for sure know that it would be considering it until tonight. And as a matter of law, the board doesn't have to provide a copy of the contract. It may seem silly, because how could you comment on something that you don't have a copy of? And that's a fair criticism. But just so you understand, my job is to give legal advice, and as a matter of law, the board is not required to provide a copy. They did some 55 minutes before the meeting started.
So did you finish the 55?
Is it?
How did the superintendent tell me he approved it this afternoon?
I just explained to you. The county superintendent approved, I'll explain to you again, I'll say it again. The county superintendent approves a contract that the board will consider. The board was considering whether or not it wanted to vote on this. Had the board said, you know what, I don't like this provision, this is not a good provision for us, they would have to propose an amendment, send it back to the county superintendent before voting on it. The board can't vote on a superintendent's contract unless the county superintendent has approved it. So the county superintendent's approval is a ticket for the board's ability to consider it. Without that approval, the board would never be able to have its vote, you would never be able to have your hearing, and we would not be the same place we are now. Mr. Shelton, were you next?
So
Correct. All right, sir, you'll have a chance in a second. Go ahead, Mr. Sheldon. We can't allow this in public.
Yeah, no, sir, when you get your chance to
Well,
come up, you're welcome to
I
come
promise
up.
I'll address you when you come up.
Yes. No, as soon as you come up, you'll
You'll have an opportunity.
definitely have a
Absolutely.
chance to.
Everybody will have an opportunity to speak if they wish on this.
And I want everybody to come up and actually speak into the microphone, so not only we hear it here inside, but I want everyone that is listening in to also be able to hear it. Anything that you say is not going to be heard online.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I'm very happy to see that you're giving us unrestricted time as the law requires. Jonathan, I agree with everything you said about the law. Everything you said, you've been a recipient of multiple emails from me. I've been working around the clock for the last week, a couple weeks, researching all of the laws about renegotiating superintendent contracts. So everything you've told the audience tonight about the vagaries of the law is 100% correct. But there's one thing you've said earlier tonight, which you're in error in, and you may not know. You've maintained that this contract was posted online approximately an hour ago. Now, earlier this afternoon, I called Dr. Tomko on his personal cell phone. We had almost a half-hour conversation. He explained to me essentially the same stuff that you just reiterated. And he also told me that as soon as the board went into closed session at 5:30, he had a couple other things he needed to discuss with them, that as soon as those matters were resolved, he said that he was hoping that by 5:45, this contract would be posted online. And I said, through board docs? And he said, yes, through board docs. Well, I sat faithfully by my computer, and almost every minute, like I was trying, Sheldon Cooper from the Big Bang Theory, trying to get Comic-Con tickets, every second, every minute, hitting, and the refresh button. And I left my house at 6:35. I also took screen grabs every 5 minutes. As of 6:35, there was nothing on board docs. The first glimpse that I and the rest of us had of this was when Mr. Palladino walked in at 7 o'clock with the paper copies. So this was our first preview of the contract. So I just want that for the record. If you're interested, I will send you those screen grabs with the timestamp so you can see for yourself that this thing was not posted on board docs, and it may not even be there right now, but it wasn't there up through 6:35. But I digress. In this few minutes that I've had to look at this contract, I see that the rate for this academic year is exactly what it would have been under the previous contract, $255,384. And then the percentage increase under your current contract, it called for 2.55% increases each year in the 5 years. But this one, while it has a 2.55 increase next year and a 2.55 increase the following year, starting in the fourth year, it goes to 3.6%, and then in the last year, a 3% increase. So, since I'm a little bit of a math wonk, as you all know, I just quickly, did some calculations here. Your salary this year is $255, or your base salary. Next year, it'll be just under $262,000. The following year, just under $269,000. The fourth year, just over $278,000. And in the final year, it's just under $287,000. So what I did was quickly, I said, well, what would you have received if your current contract would have remained in force for its 5 years versus what extra income you're getting with this new contract over the next 5 years? Right? I'm just looking at, right. Well, there's, you're getting more income, obviously, under this new contract than you would have received under the current one, because the current one had your percentage annual increases locked in at 2.55%. This one is, 3.6 in year 4 and 3% in the final year. But we don't know if you had kept your current contract in place. Yes, it expires in 2.5 years, and so we don't know if in 3 years from now what that first year increase would be. But all things being equal, when I looked at how much extra you're likely to earn from this new contract, it turns out to be just under $74,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's the number you cited a little while ago about how much tuition reimbursement you're no longer getting with this new contract. So I don't know if that's a coincidence, but it turns out that the extra, well, but the numbers are roughly the same. Now, as everyone on this board knows, when I've emailed all of you, and it was all done through CCs or blind correspondence copies, and obviously I had no intention of getting the board members involved in an online discussion because that would violate quorum rules and OPMA. But I always do read receipts, and to his credit, Jonathan always acknowledges my emails, so I know they're being delivered, except for Mr. Darrow. There seems to be a problem. I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but all the board addresses are john.smith@bellevilleschools.org. But when I use michael.darrow, D-E-R-R-O, at Belleville, it keeps getting rejected. I don't know if there's...
Yeah, I'll correct that. Actually, they put it in as Mike.Darrow, so it's Mike, not Michael. I don't know why that happened, but we just let it go like that.
I don't want you to be screened from my emails, but everything sent to you was bounced back. Well, it's no problem. Well, I didn't. You're starting to use nicknames instead of the full names. That's okay. So anyway, what I'm about to say, I've had this online. I've emailed this, but I want to say it one more time for the record. If you guys grant this new contract tonight, this is going to be the 6th contract Dr. Tomko has had in the 8 and a third years he's been the superintendent, the chief school administrator for Belleville. He started in February 2015. That first contract was a 3-year contract, and I know in discussions with him, and I was here at pretty much every board meeting for the last several years, I know there was an implicit agreement between Dr. Tomko and the board at that point that at the end of the first year, if they decided not to run him out of town, they would replace his first 3-year contract with a 5-year contract. That was a gentleman's agreement, and I had another discussion with Dr. Tomko about this very matter earlier in the day. But nevertheless, he had his first contract in February 15, new one in December of 2015. That was the first 5-year contract. Then he got another 5-year contract in May of 2017. When I was on the board in 2019, he got yet another 5-year contract. The motivation for that one in 2019 was that was the year after I believe that was Governor Murphy's first year, the superintendent cap on salaries was rescinded. And so the board at that time, to Dr. Tomko's request, we got rid of the merit incentive and made that part of his base salary so that the whole thing would be pensionable. The merit payments that he was getting up to that point were not pensionable. And it turned out that with the framework of that contract in September of 2019, it made more money for Dr. Tomko as far as eventual retirement income was concerned. It actually saved Belleville taxpayers more money. So, and then so that was contract number 4. In June of 2021, most of the same board present tonight renegotiated the contract. That was June of 2021, so that would have been contract number 5, the 4th 5-year contract. And tonight, you're about to bestow upon him the 6th contract. This will be the 5th 5-year contract in 8 years. Now, as we all know, Dr. Tomko is one of the highest paid superintendents in New Jersey. His current base salary is approximately $255,000 a year. The NJ.com, the Star Ledger's website, recently published the updated list of the top superintendent salaries in New Jersey. Dr. Tomko, I believe, is in the top 20 statewide. But when you look at the salaries of his colleagues, his peers, almost without exception, they're either in charge of districts that are much, much larger than Belleville, such as Newark, Superintendent Leone, or the other districts are some of the best performing districts, academically performing districts, not only in New Jersey, but in the nation. All right, so some of us are trying to reconcile the fact that while unfortunately Belleville still remains mired academically in the bottom third statewide overall, our superintendent is one of the highest paid superintendents in the world. There has to be some balance there, this dichotomy between what we pay our CSA and where our district is performing academically seems to be largely inconsistent. So, on that basis, there doesn't really seem to be any real rationale at this point to rescind his current contract and give him a new 5-year one. And as I've expressed to this board in the emails sent to you over the last few days, not only does this change seem to be uncalled for, it might also be illegal. And I've cited two particular case laws, highly relevant case laws for educational law, the first being Gales versus Hillside. Now, I understand that Ms. Williams is employed by the Hillside School District as a public teacher there, so she may be directly familiar with this. But what happened in 2019, that board, their superintendent at the time had a contract that was 18 months old. And at the end of 2019, they decided to rescind that contract and give him a new 5-year contract. So when the new board got seated in January of 2020, they had some legal concerns. Was this new contract legitimate? You know, because the first one had been negotiated in good faith. So there was a legal challenge, and it went to the DOE commissioner and the Office of Administrative Law. The case was somewhat complex. There are other issues, granted, and I had this discussion with Dr. Tomko. There's more to the Gales versus Hillside decision than just this matter. But in the executive summary ruling made by the DOE commissioner in 2020, that commissioner unequivocally said that boards, when a contract has been faithfully negotiated or renegotiated, there is an obligation for that board to honor that contract. You can't just capriciously, flippantly say every 2 years, we like our superintendent, he's a swell guy, he's doing so much, look, we got pizza ovens, we got whatever, and we want to give him more money because he's doing such a phenomenal job for us. There has to be some attention given to the integrity, the sanctity of a contract. Now, to Mr. Velez's credit, in 2021, the last time this board renegotiated Dr. Tomko's contract, Mr. Velez, and I've credited him online multiple times with this, to his credit, he was the only member of the board who said, look, guys, the previous contract from 2019 was done in good faith. We have an obligation to honor that. And he was the lone no vote in June 2021 over this matter. So, you have the possibility of running afoul of the Gales versus Hillside decision. But moreover, and this is now out, and I'm not breaking any confidentiality rules here in saying the following, but last year, after Mr. Muniz and Ms. Bennett-Meany declared their candidacy to run for office, I cautioned them in both August and September of last year that they had to necessarily refrain from continuing to vote for Mr. Mellum's lease payments because he was their campaign manager, more importantly, their treasurer. So anyway, let me cut to the chase. I filed an ethics complaint. It went through the process, took several months. In April, the School Ethics Commission ruled completely in my favor, found probable cause, and in May, they instructed the Attorney General's office.
That's not totally accurate. I need to just say it. And I don't want to interrupt you, and since it's unlimited time, it's not like I have to pause your time or anything, so let me just say. That's not accurate. They found probable cause to move forward to bring it to the next level. That just means that there was some dispute.
You saw the letter.
I saw the letter, but that does the case has not been determined.
It's still right.
It's still pending. So let's just not say that they found in your favor. The case is still pending.
They found probable cause
to move forward. They do that in most of the School Ethics Commission cases. So let's just say what it is. But that's fine. I mean, I just want to make sure that it's clear as we're moving forward.
Look, what I'm arguing here is that the role, the placement of these two trustees on the board is somewhat up in question right now. There is a good chance that before this year concludes, even before we get to the opening of the fall term, the September start of the school year, the AG's office, and they've already been in touch with me. I've spoken to the attorney but they may be removed from cause. So I think that this puts two trustees here in effectively a lame duck situation. All right, you're going to disagree with me, obviously, Jonathan, but this then brings up another important school law precedent case, Nowak versus Manville, where the state has already ruled that lame duck boards cannot renegotiate superintendent contracts. What I'm trying to say here is that there are a multitude of reasons why this contract should not be renegotiated at this
So,
point.
Mr. Sheldon, if again, since we don't have to stop any time, just want to pause real quick, if you don't mind, if that's okay. Because I understand that you like to bring up anything that you can bring up, and this really has nothing to do with the superintendent's contract. But the reality is that this case, which I have no problem discussing or talking about, because there's
We can't
nothing,
openly discuss
no,
it.
there's
We
nothing
can't
that I'm
openly-
concerned about with this case. So your insinuation, first of all, that we're going to be removed from this board, is just your
There's a
insinuation, and
chance,
it's just
there's a
your
good
opinion.
chance. There's a good
And it's
chance.
just your opinion. Again, it's just your opinion. So the reality is that, the one, this has nothing to do with the superintendent's contract, and your insinuation that we're in a lame duck situation or that we're going to be removed, once again, is just your opinion. I understand you like the clickbait and you like to go ahead and go through that scenario, but in this case, it's not something that has anything to do with the superintendent's contract. If you want to discuss it, listen, I am not the kind of person that hides behind anything, so I have no problem having a discussion, whether private or out loud. The reality is that if we're going through this process, because this is the legal process and how it has to happen, every single board member up here, sits up here with our superintendent and with an attorney. Before we take a vote on anything, we ask what we can take a vote on or not. And if we're told that we're allowed to take part on something, then we do so. And the rare times that we're told that we can't, then we take no part. But you continue to insinuate that we're standing up here or sitting up here trying to do all this illegal stuff. That's not true. And not only that, but if you're going to run for this board, one of the most frustrating things for any trustee is to not be able to take part on something that they swore that they would take a part on. So for any of us to have to abstain outside of any reasons, any personal reasons, is very difficult, because we all consciously get up here and want to do the best job that we can and vote on every possible thing we can vote on. So you continue to insinuate that we're going to be arrested, that all these things are happening. Listen, I'm not concerned about any of that. We're going to be removed from our seats. Every action that we've taken since we've been up here has been done in good faith and has been done to do the best possible job that we can. So you continue to make these comments. I don't want the public to get the misunderstanding that we're getting ready to get hauled away in handcuffs, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. And the reality is that when we're coming up here the same way that when you had your time up here as a trustee, you stood here and you did the very best possible job you could for your role, and you voted on every possible thing that you could. You know very well that everything that we do in the representation. So I just need to say that, because it's not fair that we're stuck having to sit here quietly, respectfully listening to what you have to say, and you're constantly just keep throwing jabs like if you make opinions and assumptions, and you say them in a way like if they're facts and they're true, and that's just your opinion, and you're allowed to have it. And it doesn't faze me one way or the other what you think is going to happen. The reality is that it's going through a process right now, and eventually we will know what the outcome of that is, and it will be public information. And when that day comes, then you can come here and speak with assertion. But until then, you can't.
I am not making any insinuations. All I am pointing out is that there are multiple complications for this board to be moving forward on a new contract at this point.
And
it would make sense, it would be in everyone's best interest. Just as I questioned you and Ms. Bennett-Meany last summer, had the two of you just simply abstained from those checks for 335 Union Avenue, I would have had no reason to file an ethics complaint against you. But you ignored me.
No, so just to be clear, no, you were not ignored. To you feel like you may have been ignored, but just like yourself and anyone who comes into our meetings, if they come here and they make a statement on something that we need some further clarity on, obviously we're not going to sit here and have an open discussion on what that clarity needs to be, but we will take you into consideration a lot of things you say. And a lot of the things that you say, I make notes of. I'm literally sitting here making notes as you're speaking. So I have no problem with the things that you say, Mr. Sheldon. I think it's fair and it's valid, and I'm going to listen to every single person here. And I'm going to take that information, and I'm going to go into my conversations with the attorney and Dr. Tomko and the rest of our trustees, and I'm going to ask them those questions to see if it's factual or not. And if I'm directed that I can still continue to do my job as a trustee, then I'm going to continue to do so until otherwise told. And that's where we'll end up at some point, knowing whether I did that correctly or not. But to the best of my abilities, I know that I behaved in an ethical way.
All right. Well, look, let me finish up here. What I'm about to say, yes, is a little bit of speculation on my part, but it's well-founded. What I believe is happening here is that Dr. Tomko himself is one of the SEC commissioners. Yes, he had to recuse himself from this particular matter for obvious reasons, but he knows what.
This is outrageous.
It's not outrageous. I believe that Dr.
It's
Tomko
outrageous
is
because you're
trying to-
suggesting that there's a level of corruption that and you're,
It's
I
not
know
corruption. I'm
well,
just saying
you're
that-
suggesting, Mr. Sheldon, respectfully, I understand your points. You're a very smart guy, and we've talked many times over the years, including when you were 1/9 of my client, 1/7, excuse me, of my client when you sat up here. But to suggest
responsible for your firm being.
and I'm greatly appreciative. So you know that my arguments are not just built on nothing. So I'm going to say this to you, and I hope you take that seriously when I'm saying to you. You can't, I understand that conjecture is one of the ways that community activists find a way to bring issues to people's attention. We all deeply respect that. I know it feels hard for people like you and some others in this community to respect that, but we do know that. And this board has a greater level of tolerance, I think, than other clients of mine in that regard, sincerely. But to suggest in any way, or if the word suggest is too strong, then let's use something more mild. But the reality is that you started to say just now that Dr. Tomko and the School Ethics Commission in some way are working together.
No, I just the opposite. He's completely disjointed from the SEC in this matter, but as an SEC commissioner, he knows all of the ins and outs of
Okay.
the SEC operation. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I was trying to
Then I
say.
apologize.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. But what I was leading up to saying is that Dr. Tomko has to know at some level that there could very well be a fundamental sea change with this board by the end of this year. That not only could there be 2 new trustees in place, because it's November's election, there are 2 seats available, but you could have four new trustees in place. And so what he is doing strategically is he's trying to reset the clock from T equals 0 right now so that he has 5 years.
So
And
to your
that
argument.
that way, God forbid that Sheldon somehow manages to get back on this board, that's only a 3-year term, and if he has 5 years, he can write out the Sheldon storm.
Okay, so
that's
to
what
your argument, Mr. Sheldon,
Yeah.
to your argument, okay? Let's say what you're saying is 100% true. Okay? Let's say that that's true. So from this moment on, since the ethics charge that you placed on us, since that moment on, should I just abstain from any action that has to do with this board? Or should I just stand up here, or should I sit up here with the rest of my trustees and do the job that I'm told that I was voted in to do?
In my opinion, and again, this is a non-lawyer opinion, but my opinion, you're entitled to vote on matters that are contemporary, that are currently at hand. But making decisions about the superintendent that are going to affect the next 5 years, when there is legitimate doubt whether you will be here come January.
There is not.
Go ahead.
Let me be very clear, both for you, Mr. Sheldon, and for this entire community. There is not, and I'm going to use your words, legitimate doubt as to whether or not the 2 trustees you're referring to are going to be here. Legitimate doubt. Let's just go through this. Under your theory, Mr. Sheldon, who is going to remove the 2 members, the 2 trustees? Who? The School Ethics Commission?
It could be either
The school, let me tell everybody, for everybody's edification, the School Ethics Commission has removed probably a total of 3 or 4 people since its inception in the early 1990s. Maybe. And I don't even know that for sure. I just know that one of the major criticisms of the School Ethics Commission, and with all due respect to Dr. Tomko, who has been addressed earlier, serves as one of its commissioners, they don't go far enough on a variety of ethics charges. There are way more serious charges than the ones that you have made against these 2 trustees that have not resulted in removal or even other less significant disciplinary action. So it's just, when you keep saying this, we are now past the point of the discussion as to your position on Dr. Tomko's
Well, I'm almost
contract.
finished, but Jonathan, you said that the SEC itself has removed very few trustees over its years, and I agree with you, but are you familiar with the last trustee that the SEC removed? It happened at the end of last year, West New York. They removed that trustee because he failed to just submit just 2 years of personal financial disclosure forms. I'm not going to talk publicly about, until the SEC and the AOL go through this process, I won't publicly say what the basis of the charges are against Mr.
Okay.
Muniz and Ms. Bennett-Meany. But if a trustee could get removed for failure to do just 2 years of personal
It's not the
financial
same thing.
disclosure forms.
It's not the
oh
same.
my
I mean-
God, what
Well,
is happening?
So,
But let
and
me
that's
just
fine.
finish-
Well,
let me just-
that obviously has nothing to do with our ethics charge, so I'm not really concerned whether you want to
All right, let me
insinuate or
ju- I'm
not.
almost finished.
What I will say is that you started this conversation, Mr. Sheldon. I will tell you right now, and I can't speak for Gabby because she's the other part of this situation, but I'll speak for myself. The reality is that while I'm here, I'm going to do my job. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with me or not, I'm still going to get up here and I'm still going to do my job and I'm still going to ask for direction by our legal counsel so that we can move forward and make sure that we do things correctly. So you can go ahead and tie whatever pieces together to help your argument, but the reality is that it's not going to stop me until the very last day that I'm a trustee. That's when I'll stop voting on things. That's when I'll stop taking part. And as long as I'm told that I can take part, I will do so. And moving forward with that, if you're going to continue with in this direction, this has nothing to do with Dr. Tomko's contract. And I've let you entertain it because we're giving free time and we're letting everyone speak their mind on things. But this, so far, it's not a lame duck situation. We made that very clear. And you're having a conversation about something that has nothing to do with Dr. Tomko's contract. So if you don't mind,
Good news is
please
I am-
revert back to
I-
the contract.
I am almost finished with my remarks for this portion of the meeting. There are only two last things I want to ask tonight. The person who chairs the negotiation committee, I assume it's the negotiation committee, who handled the production of this new contract, is that correct? Is it the?
That's correct. It would always go through committee. That's always been our process.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Dattis is the chair of the negotiations committee?
That's not correct.
When I checked the board committee assignments, I believe she was listed as the chair of the negotiations committee.
I don't know. I'm not sure. She's part of our.
Personnel
Here, hold
or
on.
negotiations?
My negotiation committee is completely different than, it's personnel
All
chair.
right, so who chairs the negotiations committee? Mr. Velez?
For finance. For negotiations.
I just-
Negotiations, we have the chair is Ms. Bennett-Meany, and the co-chair is Mr. Velez.
Okay, so
And then
those-
I, as the president, sit on every committee.
Right. So those are the three trustees who are principally involved in this contract.
Correct, and that is common practice, and that's how we've always done
Okay.
this
All
process.
right.
We
Thank
go
you.
from
I just-
committee to the full board. That's part of the discussion that we had earlier as to why the full board did not receive the contract, because although we were in negotiations and although we were having these discussions, and part of the reason why things were not readily available when you asked for them was because it just went through committee first. And then we had to wait until today because this is the first time. So for anyone in the community that does not know, we cannot sit in quorum. It has to be 3 trustees, no more. So beyond that, then we sit in a quorum, and then it then becomes something that a part that is considered a meeting. It has to be posted, and it can be open. In this case, we work in committee in several committees. One of them being finance, another one being operations, instruction and program, governance, personnel, negotiations, and athletics. So each committee sits with a chair and a co-chair. So all of our topics and all of our discussions, contracts, all of the above, anything that happens within committee first, and then it goes out to the rest of the board. Usually when it goes out to the rest of the board is during our nights of the meeting, because that's when we're able to be in quorum because it's announced. Just for everyone's edification on that.
Final thing for this portion of the meeting. I believe I asked the following question when I was on the board in 2019, and again as a member of the public in 2021. If you grant this new contract tonight, this 5-year contract, will there be any promise that this will be the only 5-year superintendent contract for Dr. Tomko between now and 2028? Are you willing to make that commitment? Or are you going to say, no can do?
Now, that's a violation of law.
That's
Making
all
a commitment for future board would be a violation of law,
No,
as
I'm-
opposed to what they're doing now, acting for their own board.
I can tell you, I could answer that. I have no problem with answering my time here. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
In my time,
Maybe rephrase that. Maybe to each board member, do you expect Dr. Tomko to honor the integrity of this
I mean,
5-year contract for the next?
I'll tell you what, Mr. Sheldon. Let's focus on this contract that we're dealing with right now. Am I going to go ahead and speak for future boards? No, I'm not going to do that. Am I going to speak for any of the other trustees? No.
Provided you're on the board 5 years from now, in 2028.
I don't, my term does not go out that far.
This contract that you're about to give him tonight.
My term does not go out that far.
No, I'm saying.
I think I have 2 more years left.
If you're in
Yeah.
place in 2028, when this new contract is about to expire.
I can't answer that. I won't be here at that time, so.
Throughout that period.
As far as I know, I won't be here at that time. How am I going to speak on a hypothetical?
If you are here.
If I'm here and there's good reason to do so, then sure I will. And if there isn't, then I won't.
You expect him to honor this new contract now through 2028. And should you be on the board, 5 years from now, and whatever the future may have.
I can't speak for them, Mr. Sheldon. I can't tell you what I'm going to do next week.
Well, see, we know what's going to.
It'll be nice if I'm here. Hopefully I get reelected to be brought in here, but so then that's not a concern of
We'll be
mine.
back here in 2 years in all likelihood, as history has taught us, going through the same process again.
If that's the case, then I'll see you in 2 years, Mr. Sheldon.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Okay, so let me just make a couple, I have to make some clarity comments here. I guess Dr. Tomko's going to want to, you want to do yours first? I just want to make some corrections of the law here. So everybody understands, let's be very clear, and I know, Mr. Sheldon, you're interested in what the law actually is, but what you said about lame duck boards and the Gales decision is not correct. It's not correct. It isn't. The Gales decision was a challenge to the board's 18A 1111 procedure with respect to the proper notice, which the commissioner found the board did not properly comply. Okay, lame duck boards have a very specific definition. Whether people believe that board members are going to lose elections, or the election hasn't come up yet, or the board members decide they're not running again, under your theory of the law, board members would never be able to act continuously, because frankly, as we all know, board members are up every year. So you'd have 3 board members every year if they decide not to run for re-election or deciding whether or not to run for election, that you would extend the definition of lame duck boards to cover them. The definition of lame duck boards under the Gonzalez decision, under the Gales decision, under all these decisions is defined as the period between an election and when the board members are sworn in.
Correct.
It used to be a lot simpler in education law, because it used to be that school elections, and some districts still, were held in April, and as soon as the election board certified the results, you'd have like a week or 2 before the board was sworn in. So you're really only talking about throwing away like 3 weeks. Now, because elections in most districts, like in Belleville, have been moved to November, you're talking about a lame duck period between Election Day in November and the first week of January, when the board reorganizes. So there hasn't been, other than the Gales decision and a few other types of issues, many lame duck cases since then, but it's not in dispute. The definition of lame duck is not prospective lame duck, it's lame duck. This board right now can act on any matters it chooses unless it were acting for a future board. So for example, if this contract were scheduled to go into effect next July or next January, this board would be acting for a future board. It is not. It's acting within the term of its own board. It's completely proper to do this. There's not even a question. Not even like, I wonder. No, not even a question. This board can act tonight if it chooses. If it chooses. So far, it seems like it's going to, which is why I provided the board with the proposed agreement that was already approved by the county superintendent, without which it would not have the opportunity to do. And that's it. Dr. Tomko?
Right.
Yeah, if I could.
Jonathan, I respect your legal opinions, as always, but I just beg to differ with some of the things you just said, and I think I'm going out of necessity. It may be a lost cause on my part, but if this board goes forward with the vote and gives a new contract, I think out of necessity I will contact appropriate authorities in the state and let them weigh in on this, and so that we are all in agreement. If they say that my legal opinion, that not having a JD, is hogwash, you may know how to do quantum chromodynamics, but you don't know the first thing about school law. Fine, but I think I will once again ask the DOE commissioner, who's on my distribution list, and the school ethics commission to use their resources to weigh on this about the legality of this. Perhaps this will be a precedent.
Mr.
Perhaps-
Sheldon, the Commissioner of Education is probably on the distribution list for about 85 different members of public from
realize
throughout
that.
New Jersey.
You're right.
I appreciate what you're saying. If you wanted to challenge this board's decision, I'm not giving you legal advice, I don't represent you at this time, you'd have to file a petition of appeal before the Commissioner, and then they would have to determine whether or not to send it to the Office of Administrative Law. That's up to you.
I understand the process, right. So with that said, I thank you for your time tonight. If you know,
Thank you.
if Dr. Tomko, I know, is probably going to tear me a new one right
No,
now.
no, no. I really just need to clarify. And again, I am absolutely not defending this contractor myself, but there are, and again, I'm very careful. We've talked about, you even as a former board member, I've always respected some of the stuff that, we've discussed, and even trying to get the math scores up, we spent a lot of hours doing that. So, but I think the unfortunate thing with everything that we usually talk about is we tend to tell, everybody wants transparency, but we tend to tell only part of the story. So let's first talk about when it was posted. It was posted as soon as I was able to do so through the chair, which was a little bit after 6 o'clock, and it's still posted, and it's under 8.1. So I don't know where you were looking, but it's under the hearing, so that's where it's posted.
On board docs, you're saying
It's absolutely been on there the whole time.
I'll show you the screen.
Okay, regardless, it's on there still now, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless, it was posted as soon as I was able to, as soon as the chair said I can do that. But let's talk about a couple other things. First, I think it's really important that we talk about these 6 or 7 contracts in the time I was here, okay? Because it sounds like every year we were just throwing this out. It's not the case, okay? First of all, an original contract for me was given to me in December of 2014. That's when I negotiated. I negotiated 3 or 4 months before I came here. I was a superintendent in another district. So the gentleman's agreement at the time, for lack of a better term, was we're only given 3 years. Now, why would you come to a district like this at the time, right? That was under state management, $4.5 million deficit, right? All of this place was filled with people talking about all those things. State police were here, right? Where there was some really some malfeasance really happening here at the time. And the opportunity here to help this community with my expertise, working under state monitors before, and my ability here to see what the potential of this community was for the kids, that was the agreement, was let's give it a year and see what happens. So 1 year from that point was supposed to be the renegotiation piece. And that was December of the following year. So regardless if you want to count that as contract number 2 or not, to me that's the original contract because that was the agreement. So that's that part. But all the other things, the 2019 one that you talked about, that you actually voted yes for, which was even past this point. So that would have, in your argument, that would have been lame duck. We did that in committees. We posted it because we did it in committees. Everybody was in agreement with that. And the contract actually stated in the contract, and this was in everybody's contract, so that when the caps were removed from the state legislature, right, or the statute, that we would immediately renegotiate that contract. It was actually in there. So it wasn't like we all got together. It was part of an original deal that we made in 2014. So again, a lot of this comes from the original contract. So yes, it seems like there's a lot of amendments, but that, the one in 2021 should have been done in 2020, which would have been 5 years, However, it was COVID. Almost every superintendent held off on their contract that year. So I know it looks kind of awkward when you put all the numbers together, but that's not really what happened. And we keep talking about these scores, and I keep saying we're going to improve on the scores. And we were making some really great strides before COVID came, and I think nobody can dispute that. All right, there's a very large proportion of stuff happening in this town data-wise that I think a lot of people in town aren't recognizing. The township itself is in 10% poverty, the entire township, but 60% of the schools are in poverty. We have a 5% enrollment increase since September. That's a different generation of students that we have to treat differently than some other students. That's called RTI, MTSS, all those things that this board and this community made a huge investment in just last year. So we're starting to make those strides coming up. But Mr. Frantantoni said it best. He talked about the dismal scores that we have in the middle school, but we still outrank Nutley and Bloomfield. Go check their scores. Right? So everyone's in this same boat. So I'm only saying that for myself. That really doesn't, regardless of that. But our teachers, our administrators, our kids and their parents work very hard to make sure that our kids get into the best schools they can, get the best programs they can, and all of those things. So that's what all that's about. So when we say that, I think it's important that this board understands that I back them 100% for all the support that they've given us when we collectively as stakeholders make these decisions. This isn't me coming here, so we have to do this, we have to do that. We spend 60 hours a month. You know, you spent more than anybody when you're on the board. There's a lot of stuff happening on here. So it's extremely, extremely important that we understand all that. And just one more thing, I am absolutely, and I'm not complaining about this, but I think the board knows how much I work, I am absolutely only superintendent on this side of the hemisphere probably that doesn't have an assistant superintendent for the size we have. So I'm doing both those jobs, not complaining about it, but when you start comparing my salary and whatnot to all these other places, some places have 2 assistant superintendents, some places have 3 assistant superintendents, and I'm not talking about Newark, that's a whole other anomaly. And I think we're only talking about base pay. There's a lot of hidden things, like I've said before, but I digress. I just want to make sure the board, the people out here in this great community understand that this board definitely does its due diligence, and this isn't something, you know, that we're not trying to work on, all these things that you guys talk about. And that's the real truth, not just partial truth. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sheldon.
I would just feel very comfortable and would let down all my opposition if there could be a commitment tonight that this 5-year contract will stay in place.
I'm not going anywhere. If this goes
But
through,
that
I'm
this
very
contract
happy
will
here.
Stay valid through 2028, that we won't be back here 2 years from now or 3 years from now going through.
Yeah,
have no intention of doing
we're not
that.
going to speak on behalf of anybody, the
Don't
future
do that.
board, so
We
no.
won't do that, so
Thank
that's what
Sir, I know you were making some comments earlier. Would you like a moment to stand up and speak? Right here, sir, in the black jacket. Yeah, I'm sorry, because before when you were speaking, the public couldn't hear what you were saying because it wasn't in the microphone. Sure. Anything you want to say, you're welcome to say it.
My name is Chris Cossip, 85 Route 10 Road. I was just talking about when he said that you're not obligated to give these contracts out, but technically you are sort of bound to it, because many times I heard about transparency on the board. We're transparent. When it's coming out at 6:15, I was already on my way over here, so I didn't even have a chance to even read any of this. I mean, so it should have been, actually, you should have had this like a day before, that people actually get to read everything, look everything over, because you may have spoke to all the board members and gave your opinion of why you should get a new contract and everything else, but maybe some of the people in the audience here have other opinions that might determine whether to vote yes or no on it. And that's just, I mean, just one of the things I have to say. I mean, like I said, you got a 5-year contract, do the whole 5 years. I mean, by extending it now, it's not really serving a purpose except for one person, and that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about this. So, yeah, unfortunately, sir, it's a matter of process. The board only meets, one time in July. And so I think it's just an issue of, the timing. The county superintendent approved it, but the board didn't have a chance as a board. Every time the board meets as a quorum, you have to notice the meeting, you have to have a meeting. It's not just like we can get together, here on our own. The committee can meet, but the board can't. And so that was the first time that the board had the chance to go over things. So the idea was, let's do it as quickly as possible in executive session so that we could provide the public with the contract, including this cheat sheet, as we called it, because it has an exact explanation as to all the ways that the contract has changed from the previous version for those, and I don't think there's that many of them, but there's at least a couple here who are pretty familiar with the old version of the contract, so this was just like a shortcut to show you the few places where it actually changed. So I think we appreciate what you're saying, we understand it, but the idea is that this was the first night that the board, as a board, was able to actually discuss it. We finished our discussion in that regard as quickly as we could, and then the intention was to put it out as soon as we possibly could.
Sir, can you just state your last name again, please?
Your last name again, sir?
I'm sorry?
K.O. Mr. Droz? I'm sorry. Well, I'll go ahead and call you next. He was a little quicker. I would have called, if I would have seen it, I already said it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
There we go. Good evening. I'm Ariel Droz, 95 Bell Street. I just have a few questions. I've pretty much digested everything that's going on here. But what I'm just trying to understand is, what is the purpose or urgency amending this contract so early? And who recommended it? It's only a couple of questions I got here. I won't be here a half hour. Okay. Because one of the things I've listened to about the lame duck, but just in my opinion, I don't see why you couldn't wait till after the November election to negotiate this, because you've what, 2.5 years, if I understood it correctly, and I always thought it was fair to negotiate a new contract 12 to 18 months prior to the expiration date. All right, that was that. You know, but it seems like that's the only contract that's being. Do you negotiate any union contracts before their expiration date, like 2 years into the contract? Do you negotiate union contracts that early?
Yeah, so the Paras contract that we're currently negotiating now, we actually, in good faith, opened that up early with the Paras in order to work with them much better. So yes, we're currently.
I'm not aware of that, so
Yeah, we're doing that. One of the contracts in today's agenda is for the
Okay.
Paras, and we opened that a year early.
And the only other thing here is, like I said, with the contract, that's fine, but the only problem I have, and I'm going to repeat it again, is, and I always compliment you, Mr. Tomko, but the problem I have is we have a state monitor here who was here, 8, 10 years, and as far as I'm concerned, it bothers the heck out of me that he can override your recommendations. That's why I'm opposed to the state monitor here. You should be doing it. We don't need him. And I would hope this board would write to the state and, we save his salary. He's doing 3 towns the way it is. We don't need him. We have you here, Mr. Tomko. So that's the problem I have. Let's see. And I think you made a comment before that the monitor is listening. Can we hear his voice? Is he listening? Can anybody have a phone so we could hear his voice if he's really listening? It's a fair question. He should be able to answer us. When you go to a town meeting, somebody on the other end of the phone will answer, but not here. So I think it's only a fair question. And that's all I have to say. If you could just answer the few simple questions I had.
Again, the negotiation process basically was a joint conversation. We were just done with the teachers, we were done with the paras. We're not sure what's happening with the administrators. The board was talking about possibly looking at them so that we're all on the same page. And and there's a lot of excitement. All the teachers are kind of away now. It'd be great to have them tell everyone how excited we are to be working together. We haven't had a 5-year strategic plan. We kind of waited to see what the direction was post-COVID. I think the board is talking about opening that up in September, October. I would speak for everyone here on my team that says, listen, if we have a 5-year contract and we have a 5-year plan, well, we want someone who's going to help lead that. So I think that was the impetus behind talking about it. I think, again, I think everybody thought that this was going to be a contract that came out and then, this year was renegotiated a high percentage and next year was a high percentage. The 2 years that are hypothetical years, like Mr. Sheldon brought up, well, who's to say at that point, maybe I negotiate 5%, who knows? A lot of the superintendents now that are younger than me, I could say that now that I'm over 50, but that are younger than me and are getting jobs are starting higher than I am in districts that are smaller or less productive because I'm a dying breed of administrator, believe it or not. I think, again, I appreciate the board. That wanted to say, listen, you know what? We have a 5-year contract coming up. We have a 5-year plan. Everything's going well. We were doing really well with the scores. And then COVID hit, and we took a major tank. We weren't at the 90s yet, but we were doubling some areas, if you remember. And I think we all just want at least a 5-year commitment, so we know we have to make it better in 5 years, and it will definitely happen. Our preschool population when I got here was 9%. We're at 90%. The scores are just through osmosis should go through the roof because we have these kids identified earlier with needs, and the commitment that this board made. I can't say it enough because I do go around the country and see other boards. Some people don't even know what RTI is. Your kids here have rights to intervention. They're identified, and it took us 1.5 years. Dr. Dalia, Ms. Kuko did a great job with just putting this stuff together. Instructional coaches. There's a lot of great stuff that happened out of COVID, and we just now, we're just starting to reap those benefits. So I appreciate the 5-year commitment, and I think that's what the conversation was about when we discussed it as a negotiation committee, and now with the full board. So.
just want to address the lame duck issue again. I don't think I've ever said the word lame duck so many times in one meeting, but just to reiterate what I was saying, if we were to do what was suggested about waiting till after November, then it would be illegal to act for the future board during a lame duck period. So in other words, the period between the election in November and the swearing in January is the period that as the attorney I would say, no guys, you can't do this. So you'd have to wait until January for a contract that would go into effect in July of next year, or you have to do now for a contract that would go into effect, anytime it wants, but for a 5-year deal it has to go into effect in July because contracts need to be no more than 5 years, so, or no fewer than 3. So anyway, that's the law.
Ms. Flashman?
Good evening, Carmela Fleischman, 33 Main Street. First of all, I do want to thank Dr. Tomko and the board. This cannot be an easy job. I get that. We don't have children, so we don't know in the school boards what you guys deal with. That's first and foremost. My main concern is the fact that the contracts, again, they seem to keep changing. And yes, I get we've all been coming out of COVID and the test scores have been down. I get that. But since I do not have children and since I do not know the ins and outs, the test scores, are they based on the grades or how are they based on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question for everyone. I mean, these are aggregate scores of how a student does on a standardized test.
Okay.
So what we have now is we're dealing with the initial interventions that we were trying to deal with before COVID, that we had some issues with because our scores were so low prior to COVID, plus now with the learning loss issues that all these students are having, and that's the big thing. And we talked, I think Mr. Frantantoni was talking about the indoor training facility and why Senator Ruiz said it best, why that was important was to insulate the whole child for the social emotional piece, because we had students that were afraid to come to school. And we do a really good job as a district keeping those things in-house, right? So that maybe some of the people in the township don't see some of our issues. But like I said, I think a lot of people are very taken aback to hear that we have 60% poverty in the schools. I mean, we're $500,000 in arrears, meaning that $500,000 of individuals who weren't in poverty didn't even pay their food bills. When you don't feed a community, that's a major problem, right? So maybe there's some other things happening here, underlying things that we have to take care of so those scores go up. So that's some of the things that, that are insulated than just the thing in the paper. What's interesting though is, when Mr. Sheldon mentioned some of the top districts in the nation, like Madison. Look at Madison's scores. They went down. They went from like number 1 to like number 12 or 13. So there's definitely things happening. It's real. It's a real situation. And I think we've done a great job adding some departments, and the board's really supported getting. We spent a lot of money on interventionists, but the federal government gave us money for that, so we used it in the right way. And I think that's where we're at. And I think to say that, to have now a commitment for 5 years, now we're ready to hit the ground. And again, the preliminary scores look decent. They're not where I want them to be. Trust me. I mean, I don't wake up in the morning and be like, hey, let's get really low scores. Nobody wants that, right? I mean, that can only, if our scores were where they really should be, we'd be having a different conversation about this contract, right? So, I mean, that's really where we're at. So this is about the ability to continue to maintain, what we've started, and now let's see it 5 years. My opinion is if COVID didn't happen, we would be in a totally different place score-wise.
Oh, I think the entire world.
True.
The entire world would be a different place. The kids, and I can't even imagine what these poor little kids have gone through. Just the fear that they've had to deal with in the last couple of years. It's not fair to, freak out a little kid. It's not nice. But personally and professionally, with all your education, all your degrees, what have you, putting the test scores aside, putting all the federal money aside, to ask this board to consider a renegotiation, on the contract, what have you done for Belleville? I mean, you know, it's kind of a philosophical question, you know, an open-ended question.
It's a great question. Nobody's really ever asked me that. I mean, I think you know, actually there's a former board member that said to me, "You're too humble. You should be talking about all the things that we do." You know, and I just was recognized, you know, by Education Week, which is not just a testament to anything I've done. It's what we've all done here, you know. But I think if you go, I don't know, my first meeting here, there was, no joke, 100 people here. You know, when I got appointed, there were several people that didn't want me to get appointed, right? It's some of the same people here tonight, which is interesting. They didn't even meet me yet, right? You were definitely one of them. Didn't even meet me yet, but, you know. So again, I understand. I've been around a long time, but, you know, I think, so I'm gonna kind of flip it a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you why I think that I've been successful here. Because when I do go to the buildings, these kids know my name, they know who I am, they come up to me. I mean, that's really unheard of for a superintendent, right? So what I say is that we're definitely getting through to them somehow. You know, you brought up the scores before, Mr. Fleischman, that's the aggregate, right? A percentage of students. You know, when I got here, there was no algebra. We missed algebra for a whole year before I got here. That's bad, right? And Mr. Sheldon and I were working on some of that stuff when he was on, and I think he was surprised by some of the stuff too, because it wasn't like when he went to school here, right? So we're back on track with that, but I think, you know, the aggregate scores are what you see, but, you know, we had a girl get a full ride to Harvard. We had kids go to Naval Academy. We had Penn State, Johns Hopkins. I mean, these are top schools. So what I'm saying is there are kids that can get there. We're getting them there. We need to focus on some of those other kids that are having other issues at home. I had a kid my second year here. I've never witnessed this before, but until I got here. But there was a kid really upset because his grades, first time he wasn't on the honor roll because he had to work because his father lost his job. And I remember going home to my wife and I'm saying to myself, you know, I will never know what that. I mean, I grew up with humble means. My parents both worked 2 jobs, put food on the table. I was lower middle class, you know, but never had to worry about working for my parents, you know. So I don't even know what that's like. But we have kids that go through that here, and I think they do such a great job, and our kids are so resilient that you don't see those kids. They just kind of, you know, they get lost in the sauce a little bit, and I think that's a testament to what we're doing, you know. Before anybody else can pinpoint kids, all of our kids are just Belleville kids. You know, there's a house fire. The board will tell you there's a house fire. These board members are throwing money out. Where do I put? We're having a tag day or a dress down event, you know, and nobody even asks a question. When we give out turkeys in the winter, you know, or in Thanksgiving, you know, some districts you have to hide them and stuff. We have families that are proud to say, listen, we need help, and we come through with that. So I don't know. So I think those are some of the things. I mean, you know, the first thing, Mr. Vallon, if you remember Mr. Vallon, the first thing he said to me when they hired me, even though he voted no on me, by the way, which was really interesting, the first thing he said to me was, we want you to bring the academy you created here. And that's what we did. And we have those kids now that are getting into Rutgers and medical programs and x-ray techs, and you know, that's the medical academy. So that's just one thing we did. ROTC program, the legal academy. We're now building a culinary, it's going to be a culinary lab where we're going to open up on the weekends to the community to come and buy a panini or a salad or whatever. So the ADA compliance piece, right, there's too many things to mention, but the facility piece that we're talking about, the indoor training facility, that's the first step of what the board just approved a couple months ago. Now the Success Academy. So now there's going to be an area at night for students, parents to drop off students, or maybe we're even thinking about busing students if they need help at home because maybe parents can't give that reinforcement because there's a language barrier, or, you know, my mother barely graduated high school. She couldn't help me with any lower math when I first got there, you know. And we talk about trigonometry. I was a big math guy in school, but you know, my children have my wife who's a genius and me to help, but some of these students don't have that, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to get them that reinforcement. So there's a lot of stuff that we've done.
So in your foreseeing future, do you feel working with the board and the teachers and everyone that the scores will go up?
100%. I think just through osmosis with the preschool. I mean, you know, we can battle back and forth with the research, but I don't care what anybody says. To identify a kid 2 years earlier than you would, and parents can't afford preschool, but we're offering that now. The board got a lot of grants for this. I mean, this is a great moment here. We have almost 500, or I probably shouldn't, I'm really bad with numbers with that, but a lot of students in all the preschools now. We're almost at capacity. That's going to change the dynamic of this. Those students are only in 3rd or 4th grade, maybe going into 3rd grade now. That started. So we're even doing longitudinal studies on that. But just by that is going to be, I think, an incredible change. So yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be a prominent place with some issues that we can definitely deal with. Even the building projects here. I mean, I love development, don't get me wrong, but I've told everybody, and I'll say it publicly now, if you think that 1,000 apartments or units isn't going to generate some kids here, then, I mean, I don't know what I've been doing for 25 years, but it's going to happen. Might not happen now, might not happen in 10 years, but there's going to be a huge growth. We only had 5% already from this September. So those are things that are, class sizes, all those things come into effect.
Now, do you get along with the teachers' union?
I would think so. This has been the best negotiation ever, and hopefully, I mean, again, there's no well, Mr. Sheridan's here, but hopefully somebody says something, because I think it was a great negotiation. I think the teachers, someone asked me what would the teachers say about me, and I think they think they feel there's a mutual respect, and I also believe that I challenge them every day. I really do. Not me, our administrative team does, but we all work together.
And do the teachers have a 5-year contract currently?
It's up for tonight.
Okay, all right. And again, Seton Hall, no Rutgers.
Hey,
Seton
that's
Hall.
right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleshman. I'm sorry, sir. You could just come on up and. I like that question.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Really quick, I know the gentleman prior to me asked for the same monitor confirmation. Is that something that we plan to do, to get a confirmation?
Can you just state your name, please?
Say again? Frank Acuna, A-C-U-N-A. Are we actually going to do that, get a confirmation that the same monitor is actually on the line?
That's not good to hear right now. So just so you know, sir, what we're discussing right now is currently Dr. Tomko's contract. So this is more appropriate conversation for the last portion of the public, the remarks by citizens. Anything that you're talking about right now is really stated directly towards any questions you have about Dr. Tomko's.
Okay, sure.
So, and I did, excuse me. Sorry.
Continue. Yeah, okay, awesome. So I understand contracts have clauses and stipulations, right, and benefits for the person who's renegotiating the contract. What are the key performance indicators that will merit for consideration for a new contract other than just doing your job?
Yeah, that's very simple. It's based on CUSAC. It's actually in the contract. The KPIs are in the contract. It's based on the CUSAC accountability, which we should be getting reported on that any minute. So,
okay.
I mean any minute, because it's a little.
For the contract on the line too, I didn't find it either.
It's been on there since 610, but it's here now. There should be a copy down there if you need it. But yeah, CUSAC accountability has always been the KPIs for superintendent contracts. But.
Sir, and there's a second sheet actually. If you look, there's another highlighted sheet there. Can you take that one as well, because they both go together?
However, I will say this: since I've been in Belleville, the Belleville boards that I've worked under have added KPIs without probably knowing it, but different, benchmarks, different things in evaluations, the strategic plans and stuff like that. So, but the contractual agreement, usually the KPI is the CUSAC accountability regulation, continuum.
So these KPIs would merit the person under the contract to bring up.
Yeah, there's
under whatever years.
Yeah, there's 5 areas that I have to meet monitoring for, and it's every 2 or 3 years. Well, every year we have to do what they call a DPR, or SOA, it's the Statement of Assurance, that we're meeting those areas, and we get desk audits. But every 3 or 4 years, it's changed with COVID, but we have a full audit. The whole Department of Education team comes in. They do all audits on your test scores, on your evaluation models, everything. And you need to pass all 5 areas. Before I got here, the CUSAC was probably QAR at the time. I think the score for the superintendent at the time was in the 30s. 80s is high performing. The last score we had, we were a high performing district. And we're just waiting for the scores. I'm confident that we're going to do well, but we have to wait for the official scores, which will probably be out before September. And finance will probably be 100, yeah, which is very important for a town like this. So, but those are the KPIs you're talking about, and they're actually in the contracts. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you. That's why.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Acuna. Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Point of order before she goes up.
There's no point of order. There's no point of order from the public.
Oh, he wants the acronym name.
All right, okay.
There's could be CPI, so cumulative progress indicators, but, you know.
Hello, my name is Kenya. Thank you for allowing me to come up. My name is Kenya Arroyabe, 181 Belleville Avenue. I wasn't going to speak about the contract, but I have a few concerns, I guess. So after Sheldon said the numbers, it looks like towards the end of your contract, you're going to be around 290K, something like that. Okay, so the superintendent in Newark, I believe, makes about that much, and he oversees a huge district. So I don't understand where in our budget, in such it's a township, it's not even a city, we fit that amount for a superintendent. Our teachers start at 40, I'm an educator. I coach principals and teachers for a living. Our teachers here start about 48 to 52, I believe. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. Can you tell me what the number is?
Well, if the board approves, it's going to be around 57, 56.
Okay. How do you compare with neighboring towns that start at 62,000? And how is that competitive, and how are you?
Who starts at 62,000? I'm just curious.
Newark starts at 62,000.
Newark has an $8,000 signing bonus.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
I understand. So how are you?
But that's not a comparison, ma'am, because a signing bonus means that you can't get a teacher and you need to offer a bonus to sign because of some other reason. So why does Newark give a signing bonus? I would think because the systemic changes there are so immense. Like, I mean, they give pink slips every year usually, but they're also down 120 teachers. So
I used to work there. I understand.
right.
What I'm saying is you may not be getting the best. I didn't come to Belleville because I wasn't going to make what I made elsewhere. I'm saying it's not competitive compared to other towns, is what I'm saying. So we may be missing out on great teachers. That's just my opinion.
I disagree with that, though. I think we negotiated an incredible contract, and I think it was over an 80% approval rating on this new contract. So I think the teachers are very happy, and I think it's pretty competitive, and we have a lot of teachers on here
I mean, I do
now.
see that there are a lot of teachers that don't leave. I mean, my elementary school teacher was my children's elementary. I have 7 children, 4 of which attend your schools.
Yes. So I'm sorry, you said they don't leave, so that's great retention.
They don't leave. No, it's good retention, but I am not sure about their pedagogy. I'm not sure about their training, and I'm not sure if they're, you say about RTI, MTSS, these are all new things, right? Things that weren't happening before. Are they trained in all of these new things that are going on? How does that look? Because you mentioned the RTI, and you mentioned the MTSS, and I will talk later about our scores, but I asked my daughter, I said, Michaela, she scored a 2 on one of the assessments, I believe it was the math, and I spoke to Mr. Giacchetti, they go to school 8, and I said, what is this school, what is the plan? Because not only did my daughter score a 2, but the whole 3rd grade, your whole 3rd grade scored an average of 2. That's an issue, a huge issue. So what is the plan from the superintendent, from the board? What exactly is it that you guys are going to do?
Well, we could talk about that in the other session. We have discussed that plenty. This is the first time I'm seeing you here, but we have discussed that. We had an entire group of our RTI teachers here to talk about that. We had a presentation, but
I understand,
we can
but
go over it again.
When I asked my daughter if she's being pulled out for any intervention, the answer is no.
I don't know what tier she is. I'm not going to talk about your daughter here. We can do it later on.
I'm not sure, but what I'm saying is that...
Yeah. We definitely have it in place here. We spent over $1 million, but I don't know if this is the appropriate time. Maybe, like you said, next session? Yeah, that's perfect. We can do that, sure.
That's the only thing I wanted to mention was that I don't understand how your salary is so high for a township when we look at other townships.
That's a great question. I'm really glad you brought that up, too, because I think that's probably the elephant in the room, but I don't know what Mr. Leone is going to be making in 5 years. So in 5 years, I can imagine he's going to be closer to $400,000. So, but you're right, though. Absolutely. Oh, 100%. No, it's going to happen because he's over 300 now. It's just you're only looking at base salary. So
I appreciate that.
And just so again, just to be very clear,
Thank you very much.
I'm not even in the way Mr. Sheldon mentioned the top 20 or whatever. So there are many superintendents that are even pushed up ahead of me now with this new contract coming up. So, but again, I appreciate that because talking out in 5 years, I would love to see what he makes over there. So.
Is there anyone else that would like to discuss Dr. Tomko's contract? Okay, well, we can move on from that. Thank you very much. So, okay, so now we're going to move on to remarks by citizens.
Yeah.
Agenda items only. Okay, so we're going to move on to, may I have a motion to open public participation?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Session 1. Okay. So I will call the individuals who to speak in the order in which they appear in the sign-in roster. The individual called to be heard shall proceed with his or her comments as briefly as the subject permits, with a maximum of 3 minutes at the podium. All inquiries must be directed at the board president. This portion of the public commenting is on agenda items only. Ms. Camilla Fleshman?
Carmela Fleischman, 33 Main Street. Now, this is on the agenda items, correct? Okay, so first agenda item is the lovely $40,000 floor. Where is that going to be fixed, and why is it so much money?
Can you give us a number, please? I'm sorry.
That's what I'm looking for now. Sorry, Mick. There you go. Thank you. Okay.
Ms. Fleshman?
Yeah, 1 second.
No, actually, just want to remind you real quick. So the way we moved this portion of it, just a little bit different of what we did, we just currently had, since we had a full dialogue going on in this version. You ask any questions that you have,
Here it is.
and we'll answer all your questions towards the
Sure.
end, just so you know.
14.4, page 9, 14.4. The approval of appropriation, $39,767 from the maintenance review to purchase and installation of the terrazzo floor of the high school. That's pretty, that was it. So,
Well, thank you for that. If you walk down the hallway a little bit, you'll see that, I'm sorry, downstairs and down the hallway, we have 2 areas of the floor ripped up because of that sewer piping we were talking about. The one in the back by the cafeteria, it's about 100 feet. 100 yards. 100 yards, I forget. 100 feet of new pipe that we had to put in, so we need to replace the terrazzo on top of that.
okay, I get that. I went to school here 100 years ago.
Yes.
We didn't have terrazzo flooring back then, okay? We probably had, it was probably tiled floor and back in the day, you know. Again,
Yeah,
graduated.
I'm pretty sure that's terrazzo. That's the original, we matched the original floor.
Okay,
So,
my point is,
okay.
terrazzo floor is very expensive to replace and fix. Is there an alternative that would be cheaper in the long run? Because, again, I watch my little home improvement shows, so I know what a pain in the neck replacing terrazzo floor is. Why go with the terrazzo floor again if it's such an expense to the board to fix it? And again, you know.
Well, that's a great point. I think it's probably a little bit more costly because of the material. I mean, but I think my experience, and I've done almost $1 billion in projects now throughout my career, my experience is when you try to match one material with another in a high flow area like that, it's right in front of the cafeteria, I just think in the long run, we'd be replacing it over and over again. So to put cement there and then tile on top of it would have to be, it would have to be a, probably like a vinyl type tile, which I don't think would last over time. So the terrazzo match, it would look seamless. The color is very close. We just think that durability wise, in my lifetime, this will never be replaced again. So that's really why we did it, so.
And what made you choose this contract? How many bids did you get before you chose this contract?
State contract, I don't have.
Floor?
Yeah.
He's co-op.
It's a co-op bid, so it's already bid out by the state co-op. Well, it's not a state co-op. What co-op was it? Do you know? What co-op was it? one of our co-ops that we use already bid it out, so they usually bid like a conglomerate of people that give you the best deal for the tiles. That's how it
Can we
works.
find out how many bids were put up?
But from the co-op, that's really not how the co-op works. The co-ops, either whether it's NJESC or Matawan or whatever co-op they do, usually they put a bid out in bid specs, and then that's what's bid. And that's all state regulated, so that's why you use a state contract kind of thing. I can investigate it and see how much.
So you wouldn't know.
Hunterdon County.
Okay, so you wouldn't know if Hunterdon County, as an example, is trying to get more money for an Essex County school. If you don't know the particular ins and outs of the subcontractor, the bids and things like that, how do you know you're not getting taken advantage of, it being a farther out county coming into Essex County, which is one of the biggest counties of New Jersey. So they're saying, okay, look, Essex County's got all that money, they're doing all these things and blah, blah, blah. Let's put another $20,000 on the bill. How can you?
Well, that would be fraud, and that's the problem. So that's why we do this, because if I just used Uncle Joe's whatever, and I had 3 other bids, this is through a state co-op, which is all regulated. That's why we do it. And it's not uncommon to use that. But I can find out how many bids there were.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we
because
could do that.
again, Terrazzo's lovely and just long sustaining, but again, I think $40,000 to replace a floor may be, okay, but I think it's a smidge on the high side.
Okay, we'll get that in the info. Which was what?
90, that was the original quote.
The original quote, right?
Thank you, Mr. Fleshman. Mr. Vincent Francesoni?
Good evening once again. Just a couple of things on transparency. Mr. Droz asked you if teachers' contracts are negotiated far in advance, and you told him yes, but the truth is they may be negotiated, but I never remember a teacher's contract being canceled, a new contract in the middle of the existing contract, like we've been doing with these superintendent contracts. All the teachers' contracts that I've done, they run to their termination. You may negotiate ahead of the termination date, but you never change a teacher's contract.
Mr. Fleshman, we didn't say it was the teacher's contract. We said it was for the paras.
The what?
This was for the paraprofessional, not the teacher's contract.
Any kind, whether the teachers or the maintenance one, you've never changed a contract in the middle of an existing contract like you're doing with the superintendents all the time. So I think that was the wrong answer you gave to Mr. Droz. The other thing on, again, the transparency, we'll go to 13.50 and 13.61. The middle school parking garage, it's another thing that you bypass citizens' inputs. We did not have opportunity to speak on this matter. As I said before, you overstated many budget line items to create that surplus, so you had this unholy alliance with the mayor and the council to slide this thing without citizens' approval or input. So now 13.50, or another round of delineation sampling. What are they sampling for? That was a former gas station. Can we know what another round of sampling and the reason for it? In 13.61, we're rejecting to receive bids for the Belleville Middle School project. Can we know what those bids were for, the dollar amount, and the reasons for rejecting them? Can I get some answers?
Mr. Frantoni, is that your last question? We don't want to take your time, Mr. Flashman. Like we mentioned earlier, you ask all of your questions, and then we'll come back to you with your answers.
Okay.
It's the
that's
same
only-
way every meeting.
So that's only applies to me, because everybody else, you've had a back and forth with them. Now, if it comes to me, you can't have the same respect that the other people.
The first half of our meeting was a back and forth.
no,
This
you
portion of the meeting is not.
You just had a back and forth with Mrs. Fleischman.
Ms. Fleischman had one question.
She had one
Okay,
question,
well, I got
and she
one-
said
I
that she
got
was
one
done with her
question.
question, so we answered it.
I got one question, the middle school parking garage. You rejected the bids. I want to know
Okay,
why you rejected
so,
them.
yeah,
what
let's go
the
ahead and
problem
answer that question.
That's all
Yeah.
I'm talking about. The questions are.
No
about
problem,
the middle
Mr.
school
Frantantoni. You were going to
you-
answer that question now.
Sir, with all due respect, you've asked 5 questions. I have them written down right here. I mean, what do you, I don't know what you mean. You asked 5. Do you want just the last answer? I can give you the last answer.
No, Mr. Tomko, look, you can pull the wool over some people's eyes, but not mine. The talk about the transparency, what Mr. Dro said, was not a question. It was a statement that you gave him the wrong answer. That was not a question. The questions I have are 13.50 and 13.61, both of them the middle school parking garage. I want to know another round of sampling for what? And I want to know why was the bid rejected? There wasn't 5 questions.
The first question you asked me, if you asked me again, if there was a teacher's contract that was ever negotiated early, and we try to answer you there.
That was a statement. That was a statement.
Okay,
I said
so that-
there was
so then
never
I won't-
a
okay.
teacher's contract that was ended
Then
before
my
the
apologies.
termination
My
of the
apologies. I
contract.
won't answer that question, but the answer that we gave Mr. Draws was correct, just so you know. The bypass that you're talking about, or the delineation samples are for sample soil borings that are environmental issues that are in almost every property in New Jersey when you're doing buildings. So we've been doing that. That's continuing. There's wells there. It's probably going to be 5 to 10 years of sampling. It's been budgeted for. It's part of the EPA Environmental Protection Agency has it in a plan, or it's going to be a proposed plan. And you're going to see that on agendas as we continue to go. The bids are, we can make the bids available to you. They're online via the architect. So I'll have Mr. Palladino direct Mr. Cook to put that link online as soon as we're in tomorrow morning or done tonight, however quickly Mr. Cook could do it. Thank you.
All right, so without voter approval, we bought a contaminated piece of property that the taxpayers are going to be paying years to clean up. Thank you very much for putting us in hock.
Mr. Michael Sheldon.
Good evening again, Michael Sheldon. Try to get through this quickly in 3 minutes, so pencils ready. All right. There are 3 contracts that you're about to vote upon. One is the superintendent's contract, that's 10.1, and then the MOAs for the BEA, 10.2, and the MOA for the paras and bus drivers, 12.3. I would very much appreciate it if the board could separately poll these. It would be helpful for the community to see where each trustee stands on these contracts. Also, before you vote on 12.2 and 12.3, which are the contracts for the BEA and the paras, could you just give us a quick summary of what's involved with their new 5-year contracts, what increases they're getting, et cetera? Because if you can't do it now, in the second session, I'll probably ask the same question. At that point, I assume everything will have been ratified. 1066, Dr. D'Elia is apparently being made now Director of Human Resources. Does this mean that his previous role as Chief Talent Officer is disappearing? 13.2, there's $10,000 being appropriated to do a queuing study at school number 4. Can you elaborate exactly what that is to deal with traffic flow, et cetera? All right, 13.42, you're going to have underground surveying at the high school to mark utilities for $1,100. In the global scheme of things, $1,100 is nothing, but couldn't PSE&G do that for free? I thought PSE&G has a program to mark utility lines at no cost to taxpayers. Mr. Frantantoni brought up the parking garage, another study here, this delineation study at 259 Washington Avenue for $75.50. This is now about $100,000 of different environmental studies for the same property. I've been harping on this over the course of the last year, and apparently you're still not completely certain what the extent of the contamination is. But doesn't this throw into question, make this uncertainty affect the ability of contractors to bid? Because if you don't know with certainty what the status of the soil is in the area, how can they legitimately put forth an accurate bid? So I'd like some clarification there. 13.79, you're doing some repair work. It's floors at school number 4 for, again, essentially chump change, $1,950, but I'd just like to know what's wrong with the floor there, because school 4 got so much attention with the referendum. And then lastly, 13.86, there's an addendum here to approve a vendor list. This is just another example. If you look at the board docs, at least in a couple hours ago, you're approving a vendor list, but there's no vendor list there. So I don't know if after the fact tonight, Mr. Palladino will publish the vendor list, but this is one of many instances where you just give a minimal amount of information for an agenda item, and we don't know the details of a contract or vendors, et cetera, which then necessitates an OPA request, and then I get crucified for making those OPA requests. So if you can, please, I would appreciate if you could, and then the one very last thing, check number 088377. This is a routine thing for purchases at the Nutley ShopRite. And it's this month, it's almost $18,000. And I understand there's a lot of programs going on here. I'm not questioning the amount of money. All I'm questioning is, we have a ShopRite here in Belleville. And I know the Lucurcio family owns all of these ShopRites, but why aren't we giving Belleville businesses Belleville taxpayer dollars? Why are we using Nutley ShopRite in favor of our ShopRite? It would be more income for our township. So if there's anything you guys could do to maybe direct some of that Nutley ShopRite business to the Belleville ShopRite, I think it would be a win-win for all of us. All right, that's it for session 1. Thank you.
Please,
Okay, that's a few questions, so let's try to do the best we can to get through here. The BEA and para contracts will be operable after today because of the collective bargaining perk laws. They cannot be shared until after the board approves them, and then we'll make them public. They'll probably be just posted, but if Mr. Sheldon, if you want those directly, we can get them to you tomorrow. So we're gonna post them. Mr. Palladino will post them either later today or tomorrow morning. Yes, Dr. DeLee is going. We've consolidated his position, his original position, with Director of Human Resources, which was a discussion we had with the Bush Law Group regarding moving forward with some administrative stuff we need to do. So he basically is taking on 1.5 positions. He'll still be doing the talent the portion of it. We kind of just morphed it into that whole job description. So he'll be in charge of all that. 1032, the queuing at School 4. That's a study done on a cutout for busing, but we're pulling that. We were going to announce that, but we're going to pull that this evening. We think there might be some DOT stuff out there that we can utilize instead of, so we want to make sure we do all of our due diligence prior to that. So we're going to pull that and revisit that. The underground serving for the utility lines, the only thing I can think of is...
That's in the hallway by the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah, but no, PSE&G too long probably, right?
No, too long.
PSE&G's wait list now is several years, so for project costs and whatnot, I just wanted to clarify that. The soil status at the middle school, there's, again, anything in this area where there's any digging has to be involved, has some kind of environmental issues. We've dealt with a few properties already. It doesn't mean that they're contaminated. It just means that at any level of things that used to be there, so it used to be a gas station, the EPA is now very proactive on surveying those samples, remediating those samples prior to anything happening. So that's really what's happening. So it is a little cost, but it's not going to affect any bidding. The vendor list addendum will be posted as soon as the board approves it. And that check for ShopRite, you're 100% correct. We're going to look into why we don't use Belleville, but it could be a...
We do use Belleville. Our kids go to both Nutley and the Belleville ShopRite. Nutley just holds the account.
Oh, okay. So we use both, but Nutley holds the account. Thank you for clarifying. I didn't know either, but that's a good question. Thank you.
I apologize if I say your name wrong, but I believe it's Raiz Suarez or Suarely. I know I saw someone leave, so it might just be that. Okay, no problem. Okay, we're gonna move on to Mr. Droz. He has left. Okay, Ms. Masaja, Dr. Masaja. Apologies. You work hard for that.
This is just the first part, okay. So first, all right, so, what? Do I really need to? I'm pretty loud. Ask my students, I'm very loud. It's the price you pay. Okay, so first, I'll ask a question, then I'll make a comment. How's that? Okay, so my question is on 13.56, on the Nearpod. Okay, it's on the vocabulary. Is that something that's being added on to Nearpod you're already using for maybe the ELA and the math? I use the Nearpod math with my students, or is this just something brand new, and for what grades will you be using it?
Well, yeah, answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. No problem. And then I will just make a general comment. I want to commend the negotiations team. That's, what did you say, Louis, Gabby, and Frank, for whether we agree with everything or disagree with everything, the fact that you not only reached a successful agreement for not only one contract, but from what I understand, 3 bargaining units, including teachers, paras, and bus drivers, I think is amazing. I have been a teacher, a union member, a member of a negotiations team, and a Board of Ed member at some point for more than 3 decades, and I've never seen that happen. So to me, it's amazing, because in most of the time that I've ever been in any of those positions, we not only didn't get it done in time for one bargaining unit, but we worked many, many years, even without a contract, because we couldn't get it done for one, never mind for 3. So I think that's pretty amazing that you managed, the 3 of you, to get all of that done for 3 bargaining units. So I commend you on, I know how many hours that must have entailed of endless nights away from home and from your families, trying to get that all done and to reach satisfactory resolutions to all of that. So I commend you, because I know what a hard job that is. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
To answer your vocabulary, it's Nearpod. It's part of Nearpod. It's for about 160 students in the elementary type or middle school levels. It's more of more elementary, but it's more of for some of our lower tier students. But you said you use Nearpod. It's phenomenal. Yeah, it's great. So we're trying to really include it here. Yeah, it's definitely a game changer. Yeah, it's a game changer. So thank you.
I believe is Mr. Moulton. Sir, did you sign up? Yes. Okay. Yeah, come on up, sir. Sorry, I couldn't understand how it was written. But we got it. Yeah.
Bill Milden, Huckle Street. I just have
Yep, that's it.
a lot of people would like to know, are the taxpayers still paying for that lease agreement with our Board of Ed at 335 Union Avenue?
Yeah, is that your only question, Mr. Milden?
Pardon me?
Is that your only question?
Yeah, that's the only one, because it apparently is a conflict of interest. 2.26.020 titled conflict of interest. I just wanted to still being paid. Are we
Okay,
paying
well,
for that?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the statute you just reported, but we were in active contract with that lease agreement, and we are actively negotiating some terms of that lease right now. So I will give you an update as soon as I can, I promise.
Oh, so we just want to know if we're still paying for that, the taxpayers, that's all.
We're still under that agreement, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan Sheridan.
All right, so first I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak. So I'm speaking on behalf of for the negotiations team. I was one of the negotiations chair for our teachers union, and Mike asked me to read this in regards to our union's perspective of the negotiations. Good evening, Belleville Board of Education trustees and the Belleville community. I'm sorry I cannot be here in person to deliver this message of how appreciative we are for the most recent negotiation process. On behalf of the Belleville Education Association, Executive Council, and negotiation team, I would like to thank Dr. Tomko, Board President Louis Muniz, Board Trustee Frank Velez, and Vice President Gabby Meany, and the Board of Ed negotiation team for what was the most cordial negotiation I have ever had the pleasure of being a part of. This was the fourth contract negotiation during my tenure as a BEA Executive Council member and the first to exemplify such a high standard of mutual respect, consideration, and professionalism. I attribute this new norm of negotiating to the relationships that were built over the past 6 years. An educational system that is inclusive of all its stakeholders best serve its students. I believe that Dr. Tomko understands and represents the educational principles. He and I have worked very hard to create a relationship built on trust and respect. In turn, our district has made great improvements and offers our students more services and opportunities than I have witnessed in 23 years. Thank you to Dr. Tomko for your dedication to this community and our sincere gratitude to the Board of Education negotiation team for their efforts to work toward this fair mutual contract agreement. Yes, I'll forward you that.
Yeah.
I'm in awe. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same
From
here.
where we were 8 years ago to now, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Tell Ms. Mignone I appreciate that.
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, and same here. Thank you very much. And that goes both ways. I mean, everyone was great. I mean, it was a nice full classroom of people, and we all did a great job.
I was on the last two, and this went the fastest. And never mind that, like I heard you say earlier about the percentage of how many people were in favor of it, but the teaching staff and members were obviously overwhelmed with excitement.
Thank you.
Try to settle the contract before the new school year begins.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. May I have a motion to close public participation?
Motion.
And second, we had, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to,
Can we do just 10 right now? And then
so we're going to, can I have a motion on personnel, please?
Motion.
Second.
Can I actually have a motion to pull 10.1 separately?
I make a motion to vote 10.1 separately.
And
Second.
Need a second on that one? Okay.
Jonathan, we're going to take a break here.
And then I know we've been here for a little bit, so after this vote, if everyone's okay, we'll take a quick 5-minute restroom break.
So you need a motion to vote?
We're good. You motion first and Frank second. Is there any discussion on this topic? This is only for 10.1.
Wait, point of inquiry. This is, the discussion period would be in regard to the motion
For
to
10
separate.
point, no, so the 10.1 is already separate. We're voting it in, where we're gonna vote individually. If there's any discussion on 10.1 only, then now is the time to do it. Any discussions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. From 2005 until 2016, I had the pleasure of sitting out in the audience many, many times. Our prior superintendents back then had me complaining a lot. As a parent, as a taxpayer, as a past PTA president, as a past rec coach. Then Dr. Tomko arrived late 2016, and since then, the entire district has completely changed. The morale changed, our buildings and grounds have changed, and our students are making strides. In the past, superintendents did not even answer emails, phone calls. I know that the experience currently with Dr. Tomko is the opposite. Prior superintendents spent our school budget and even left us with a state monitor, and we had nothing to show for it except debt. Now, when you go into our buildings, when you walk outside of our buildings, when you speak to our teachers, our students, our staff, there is a different environment, a happy environment, a unified environment, a proactive environment where we can communicate and even agree to disagree. That is what Dr. Tomko has brought to our school district. And I definitely know that Dr. Tomko sells himself short. And when he was explaining to answer one of the questions from the community, I wanted to blurt out so many things that I have experienced myself as a parent. My son attended kindergarten in Belleville at school number 9 and graduated from this very high school, class of 2020, during a pandemic. And I have experienced about 5 superintendents since he was here, and when my sister was here, 7, and with my brother, the same. And I have not experienced what I have experienced as a parent with Dr. Tomko. He cares for our school district, and more importantly, he loves our children. So I heard some people speak today, and I understand the frustration. I'm a taxpayer too. I'm a mom, and we live in this community, so I do understand that the questions exist, and we want answers. I get it. But I also think that the hypotheticals, the assumptions are getting out of hand. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. My sister was 24. She died last year. We cannot really plan 6 years out. We can hope. We can want. We can desire. We can work for the next 6 years on a goal, on a mission. And I think the main mission here is to have success for our children, have happy employees who care for our children, and a leader who is not just an employee. This is a family. And Dr. Tomko is that in our school district. And as Mr. Sheridan came up here speaking on behalf of the BEA, it is a unified front. Our parents, our teachers, our school district, we are unified. We are here to be productive, and we're here to make sure that our students succeed. And I think we have to stay focused on that and take out the animosity ratio and really say, get on board and speak and have a conversation. That is no problem. But I think when there's attacks and when there is animosity or the thought of a superiority person, then there's a problem, because I'm no better than anybody here, and I like to treat people equally. We are all human beings, we all make mistakes, and we certainly are here living in this town, many of us here today, and I know that as a resident of Belleville, we don't want anything bad happening to our town, to our community, to our kids, or anybody here. So let's just be productive, and I wanted to say, Dr. Tomko, thank you for all the years you have served to our kids. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody here tonight. So, contract's up, and it's brought a lot of conversation. And I think good conversation at that, because many people have been talking about why this board, only less than 2 years after a previous amendment, a new contract was agreed upon, would consider a new amendment, virtually new contract. And I think that the question is a valid one, and I'm really excited to explain from my point of view as to why this has happened. So, as a member of the negotiations committee, I've had the privilege of being able to see truly the behind-the-scenes workings of the Board of Education's hiring processes in regards to negotiating bargaining units and in ascertaining contracts that will last years and have a lasting impact on our community for generations. And being a member of that committee and seeing firsthand its work and its truly interesting and beyond impactful influence on our school district, we were able to negotiate not one, not two, but 3 contracts in such a short time. And I believe this is because every member of the committee has a vision, and it's a shared vision at that, that for the next 5 years, we not only want stability, but we want continued progress in our school district. And I'll be the first one to say that in 2021, I voted no for that amendment because I thought it was wrong. I did what I thought was right. And I'll say here tonight that I'm doing what I think is right, just as I have in the past. However, in this case, I do believe a yes vote is warranted, because in this contract, there is a net positive. In 2021, as many members of this community have brought up at this board meeting, there were many issues raised. And specifically, many have brought up that there was no significant benefit to the board in regards to monetary value. Now, in this contract, as the superintendent brought up earlier in the meeting, we'd be saving over $20,000 a semester when it comes to the foregoing of the tuition reimbursement. That is not only a net positive, that is a huge cost-saving benefit for our taxpayers. And that alone is impactful enough beyond what our superintendent has shown to our community all these years, that has said to me and to my fiduciary responsibility in the school district that this is a warranted amendment. It's a warranted contract. Had we not had any significant benefit, I would have said no again, because I don't just say yes to say yes, and I don't just say no to say no. I've never been that person, and I never will. This is a contract at the right time for the right reasons. And while I hope this isn't the case, it appears as if some of the greatest opponents of the previous contract amendment in 2021 are now its greatest defenders in 2023 because it's a prospect of the superintendent getting more time in the school district. So I hope that's not true, but it does come across that way. But to close on this specific contract, I want to say that it is for the right reasons. There is a great net positive in terms of financial savings, and I think we need Dr. Tomko to continue to be the leader he's always been in this school district, alongside our great teachers, our great paraprofessionals, and all of the people who make this school district run, because that's what we need in Belleville, continued progress. So I thank everybody for coming out today, and I thank all of the questions and the concerns that have been brought up, because your voice is being heard, your opinion is valid regardless of the side that you are on any issue. So I thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Sure, I would like to just say a couple words.
Sure.
Okay.
No.
So today, this is kind of off the cuff a little bit because I did write some things down. I did go by school number 5, which actually happened to be my alma mater back in 19 blah, 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 blah. And just to see I saw a playground being built there, which I believe was never there before. And just that excitement of just seeing that, and like I said, it was a long time ago when I was in kindergarten in that school, but just the progress for that is like an amazing testimony of where this district is going to. Are we where we should be? Not necessarily. We still have a lot of work to do. There is, and everybody up here would admit that for a second. Anybody even running in the future will admit that. We have a long way to go, but we need to start somewhere. I was not part of the negotiations committee. I think that every one of the trustees' voices, though, were heard in the back of Mr. Velez, Ms. Bennett Meady, and Mr. Muniz when they were discussing it, because they asked our opinions, and they asked us, before they went to negotiations, obviously, we had to at least say, whether we thought it was a good idea or not a good idea. Even though we weren't privy to all the contract details at that time and still unknown to the entire board, we had to trust that the interests of the district come first, always, and to the community at large should be the very forefront of any decisions are made regarding our superintendent's contract. I myself did question some of the initial contract details, but when presented to me as more of an extension or continuation of the existing agreement rather than starting new again, opposed to starting a brand new one, it began to make much more sense to me. We need the stability in this district if we want to continue to move forward. Sometimes change does not happen overnight, but the sheer fact that we have seen some change to date, even if only in baby steps right now, it's still change. A house is not built overnight. It needs to start with a foundation first. I believe that Dr. Tomko has been a great asset to this district. Anytime I had questions or being new to the board this year, I had to reach out to him on a weekend. I could send him a text and I know he would answer me, even though I'm like, why are you working? He would constantly be working. If I texted him at 12 o'clock at night, he'd probably answer me. Just anything that he's very open to us as trustees and very, I guess, agreeable or whatever to say, to help us if we had a question or to guide us in the right way if we're thinking incorrectly. But I think that Dr. Tomko has been a great asset to this district, and I just would like to continue that by giving him the 2 extra years on top of what he is already here, just because our 5-year trajectory needs to be the new focus. We need to move forward as a district. The 5 years we're putting out right now needs to have net results at the end of the day. So we're putting a lot of charge into Dr. Tomko today going forward. We know you're going to hold him to what he's doing now, right? The KPIs that we talked about earlier, we're holding him to those standards now, and that now we can just move forward as a district and move forward as a community, and with the paras at the same time, and the teachers and the bus drivers and the superintendent, we're kind of aligned now to do that, what we need to do, and now we can put that to the side and move forward, and now have great expectations for where the Belleville School District is going in the future. So my 2 children, my last child graduated in 2021. When they left, it's completely different when they left to what it is today. And I can say they missed out on a lot because they did, but just to see over the past couple of years the trajectory that this school district has taken And like I said earlier, we're not there yet. We believe we have a long way to go, but I believe we have now the roadmap before us, and we're just going to continue to drive down that road the best we can. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's great to see a lot of people out here in the audience. We don't get that too often, but I'm encouraging that that happens in the future as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment, Louis. Just say to everybody that since it all seems very favorable to Dr. Tomko, and Dr. Tomko, you have done an excellent job in the years that you've been here. And if moving forward, keeping you here to do this job, it's very important. The one thing is that, yeah, so now there has to be accountability. So let's connect this to now working on the strategic plan that outlines the goals and strategies to achieve educational success in the district. And this is going to be very important moving forward as we work with Dr. Tomko to do this, and that means whoever is sitting on the board in the next couple of months or next year, right? So that's very important, and that will hold accountability, and it will allow us to then go ahead and look at all the different categories and make sure that we're putting in our goals where we want to see the district move forward and continue to put resources. And that's all I want to say.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll say something real quick. So for me, it's a little bit different. Everybody speaks about all the great things you've done. Everybody talks about all of the achievements that we've had and kind of hit, our 5-year plan. And I don't want to go into that because I know that we have to present that. But I'll say what solidified for me making this decision is not just everything that's been mentioned here, but in my capacity as a president, I've been lucky enough to sit in a room and see you just give it to the other side and just rip them a new one and arguing on behalf of our kids and our residents and our staff and everyone here. So as much as I respect everything that you do, and believe me, I have 4 kids in this district. My oldest just graduated this year. To see the way you go to bat for Belleville, I think it's well deserved, because I mean, that's the moment I realized this was more than a job. So that's my thing. Can we go ahead and have a roll call?
All right, 10.
Just 10.1.
Oh. All right, so Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
I take no part.
Vice President Benamini.
Yes.
And President Munoz.
Yes. May I have a motion to take a break, please?
Motion.
Second it?
No, just 5 minutes. Thank you. All in favor? Yes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All in favor? Any opposed? Great. Okay, so we're going to move on to the rest of personnel, which would be from 10-2 to, well, we are actually, are we pulling 10:45 on this one?
No, it's 10 to, there's an amendment, so it's 10:75.
I'm sorry. So there's an amendment to the personnel portion. So we already voted on 10-1. So I need a motion on 10-2 to 10:75.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. No, I don't. I want to know if there's any discussion on any of these items.
Well, okay, discussion, we also need a roll call because.
Yes, that'll be at the end. So is there any discussion on 10-2 to 10:75?
13.
Hearing none, Mr. Palladino, please call the roll.
Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Right here.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
No.
No, we have to
You
recuse.
abstain on 2 and
Abstain. No, there's, oh.
You, Ms. Williams has to abstain on.
Oh, 10.2 and 10.3.
Yeah.
Stand by 1 second. I think we're in the 12s for that. Where you're talking.
My mistake, my apologies.
No, okay. Can you repeat that?
Sure. Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Benemini.
Yes.
And President Munoz.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Okay, moving on to curriculum and instruction. May I have a motion on 11-1 to 11-3?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion on these items? Hearing none, Mr. Palladino, please call the roll.
Sure. Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Benemini.
Yes.
President Munoz.
Yes. So we're going to move on to board action and board policy from 12-1 to 12-20. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to re-hit some of the points on 12.2, the approval of the memorandum of agreement between the Belleville Board of Education and the Belleville Education Association. I just want to reiterate that it was a great negotiation period, and I want to extend my sincere thanks to Ms. Bennett-Meany, Mr. Muniz, and the entire BEA negotiations team, as well as Dr. Tomko, our legal counsel, Mr. Palladino, for truly a great experience. I think we got a great deal for everyone involved, and I appreciate all of the kind words, sentiments, and really the great work that we did for our educators in Belleville who work so hard. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with that. I do want to congratulate you and thank you for a great negotiation process. I mean, it really was a great experience. This is my second time negotiating this contract, so just want to thank you all for your professionalism during this process. Is there any other discussion?
Yep, I just want to say thank you as well. Thank you to Dr. Tomko. Thank you to Ryan Sheridan for reading that nice excerpt by Michael Mignon. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I have a comment, Board President.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. On board action and board policy, 12.1 is HIB. I just wanted to continue requesting that we monitor the beginning and end of any student involved in HIB if they are sent to the BUCS program, which is basically finishing high school at nighttime. I want to make sure that our students have every opportunity afforded to them to succeed. I know that there may be different situations regarding their particulars of their HIB process. But regardless, I want to make sure that our students still are able to succeed and still have afforded any opportunity to them to succeed. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Paolino, please call the roll.
Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes to all but 12.2 and 12.3. I just want to state that I am conflicted because I am a member of the NJEA, but I do want to say I do stand with our teachers and our paras, and I am in full support of them. Thank you.
So you abstain, right?
Yes, I abstain from 12.2,
Abstain.
12.3.
I got it. Thanks.
Okay.
Vice President Benamini.
Yes.
President Munoz.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to purchasing and business services. Can I have a motion on 13.1 to 13.94 with the exception of 13.2, which was removed? And that's the approval of approve the proposal of solution architect in the amount of $10,000 for Belleville School for queuing study. So that one's going to be pulled. Motion.
Second.
I need a first.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I did just want to ask a question about 13.54 about the solutions architecture proposal for 11,500. I believe it's additional properties. Do we have any information on these properties or some just the interest in them and what they can provide or benefit to us, if there are any? 1354, the solutions architecture, sorry.
Okay. So last month, the board approved a district-wide facilities evaluation on all the buildings. We haven't had one done in almost about 10 years. Off of that report, they mistakenly didn't include 487 Graylock, 499 Graylock, 567 Franklin, and the athletic facility.
And if you recall, this is when we were exploring the ideas of when we're with the curb cutouts for the buses, trying to improve the flow of traffic in all of our schools. So this is that study that we did.
So it's just a flow of traffic study then, not? No, I think it's different. It's acquiring properties, isn't it?
Oh, no, this is the evaluation study. I'm sorry. I apologize. I gave you the wrong info.
So we've done, we talked about the evaluation of all the facilities. We've done that. We did it prior to me getting here. That was setting up for referendum. We did it again about 8 years ago when I first got here. It needs to be redone. Part of it's for the long-range facilities plan. And what happened is, are the architects owned by all the buildings that we have, not some of the new buildings. So this is just this is to include them in there. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, they were missing the first bat. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Palladino, please call the roll.
Sure. Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Benamini.
Yes.
President Munoz.
Yes. We're going to move on to finance. That's 14.1 to 14.11. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Palladino, please call the roll.
Sure. Trustee Darrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jacko.
Yes.
Trustee Velez.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Benamini.
Yes.
President Munoz.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to move on to remarks by citizens. May I have a motion to open up this portion?
Motion.
And a second? Somebody?
I second.
Perfect. We have a second. I will call the individuals to speak in the order that they appear in the sign-in roster. The individual called to be heard shall proceed with his or her comments as briefly as the subject permits, with a maximum of 5 minutes at the podium. All inquiries must be directed at the board president. Ms. Camilla Fleshman, not here. Mr. Vincent Frantantoni, not here. Mr. Michael Sheldon. That's number 2. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Just the MOAs.
You had
So
mentioned
just to clarify, they're not actual contracts yet, they're the MOAs.
Right,
So, yeah.
right, okay. You mentioned earlier tonight that the rejected bids for the parking garage will be available on the Solutions Architecture website. They have this bid box system, so that's where this. All right. You guys can't give any ballpark number of what those bids, were they, typically, would they want 8 million? Did they want 14 million for the garage? Are you able to?
If you can answer.
Yeah, highest bid, I believe, was, no, that's the lowest bid.
That was the lowest.
Lowest bid was about 14.5 million.
14.5.
Yeah, highest bid was around 19 million.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that's with about 20 alternates. We pulled everything out just for the base bid, so it was very high, yeah.
That's really amazing and upsetting to hear because,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the money for the parking garage is the shared services bond ordinance from last year. That was 11.9 million, and already 5 million of it was spent acquiring the former Eastern International College, which leaves you only with 6.9 million from that pool, unless you're going to finance this through other means on top of that. But it would seem that you do have quite a problem here. Quick question: with the summer camp taking place this year, the ultimate legal liability for this, and maybe Jonathan will have to weigh in here, but is the Board of Ed responsible for the summer camp, or does the legal responsibility for that remain with the town hall?
I'm sorry, what was the
summer
Yeah.
camps are going on, because earlier this year there was a lot of discussion about shared services and.
Yeah, that's a town camp. That's the town's camp.
It's the town, all right.
Yes.
All right. I won't go into it any further, but I was contacted recently by a family who said that their child was sexually assaulted during the summer camp. I'm not going to obviously say anything more.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know, because I've recommended to this family that they seek counsel and decide,
Absolutely.
what they want to do.
Okay.
Because I didn't know whether, it would be ultimately directed to the Bush Law Group or the town hall.
So honestly, Mr. Sheldon, I don't represent you. It's the second time I've said that to you tonight. I apologize, but I have to say it. But we all, as private citizens, have a responsibility to report that type of activity to the state's Department of Child Welfare, to DCP&P. So although I know that it sounds like you're talking to a family, that's incredibly serious.
Yes.
And to the extent that it involves any activity that in any way relates to the school district, I speak on behalf of this board in saying that we're deeply concerned about it. And if there's ever anything like that that has been alleged, I highly encourage you to report that as soon as possible to state officials if you're not comfortable speaking to us. Okay? I just want to say that loud and clear. And that goes for everyone in this community. God forbid.
I understand my responsibilities
Yeah,
here.
I mean, that could be potentially, for all of us, an act by omission if we don't report something as serious as that.
No, let me just correct one thing. I said I only learned about this late this afternoon. So but I've already spoken to the family.
Please encourage that family to speak to someone as soon as possible.
I've told them they need to seek counsel immediately.
Right away.
I'm sorry, that was so serious that I
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
no, it's absolutely.
Dr. Tomko, you said that CUSAC is hopefully going to be out by September, because it's been 4 years, I guess, since the last CUSAC, so hopefully that'll be forthcoming next month. 335 Union Avenue, I know at least at this moment, the Board of Ed is no longer using that property, and I got an Oprah dump last week. It was almost 300 pages of a PDF with all the communications between the board and Mr. Mellum, and I'm slowly going through that. But I want to ask, clearly from reading that, the staff that were working in that building have been moved, I assume, to the main offices on Main Street?
Mostly.
Mostly, all right.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, no. Mostly the annex, the new middle school.
The new middle school annex, all right, okay, thank you for that. Let me see, just looked at this, I know my time is, I think that, all right, I think that's about it for tonight. I just was sidetracked with that other matter. Okay. All right, I'm going to be, looking for these various documents to be posted both on the district's website and bid box solutions architecture. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kenya Arayabe? Did I say it right? All right.
So I have to say name and address again?
So yeah, you just give your name and address. Don't give your phone number.
Kenya Aruyave, 181 Belleville Ave. So I mean, I wrote down a lot of stuff, but when I came here, I was looking at I came here to speak about the test scores, and I know you've heard test scores forever. But a lot of you guys mentioned math and reading or ELA, but I was looking at the science scores, and science is usually forgotten. So fifth graders take the test for the first time, the state test. And I'll give you an example, like School 9 had 15 students that took it, 91% failed. School 8, where my kids attend, there's 78 students in fifth grade that took the test, 92% failed. School 5 did a little better, they have 74, 79% failed. School 10 did better, again, they only have 18 students, 70% failed. You're looking at like 2 or 3 kids are passing these exams. And my daughter's one of my kids is going into fifth grade, and I want to know what the plan is for that, for the science.
That's it? But yeah, no, so, we just wanted you to get all your questions out. Because you do have plenty of time.
That's a long question.
That's a long.
It's so hard to get my
no worries.
Together. I mean, I'd love an opportunity to kind of see where you guys are as a district when it comes to standardized tests, what your plan is for the students. Because again, I do have kids that attend here. I don't know if you remember my daughter, my oldest one, was skipped twice here in the district, Abigail. She was skipped in 6th grade and in 7th grade or 8th grade. When moving back from Florida, we moved back here and she was way ahead. And so all of my kids were way ahead actually when they moved here. So that's a concern. People say the tri-state area has some of the best education. And when I came here, I was unpleasantly surprised that we are a bit behind. I'm a graduate of Belleville. I went to school 8, I went to the middle school, I came here to the high school. And I think that we can do better, and I'd like to see it do better, and I'd like to know what you guys are doing to make it better, like what's the plan? That's it.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think those are great questions, and we have talked about them throughout the meetings here. I mean, you and I have, we've maybe had 1 or 2 discussions maybe online about different things, but I think you're in the field, right? So my wife and I both being in the field forever, I think it's an automatic response to your own kids when they're, missing something. So like, for example, one of my children needed a speech therapist right away, and we had the means to get them one. Some of our parents don't have those means, and we have to identify those. That's why the preschool is very important. So I think for your kids doing so well, I think there's a lot of at-home stuff that we're trying to do. So we just did start last year. We are still working on something called a conception to cradle program to try to get the parents in right away, because we do have a lot of parents here that don't have the means that maybe you and I have. So that's just kind of part of it. The science scores again are something that we worked on, but don't forget when I know it seems like it's 8 years is a long time, but it's really not, because after 4 years or so, when we were making all this progress and we started working on science then, because the science standards changed, as I'm sure you remember, COVID hit, right? So that's a 2 or 3 year lull. So we're kind of getting back on track. But we really revamped a lot of the science curriculums. Don't forget, we also got, when you take a community like Belleville and you throw Common Core into it, you have even a bigger issue, right? So that was another year or 2. So there's been a lot of hurdles that we've kind of jumped over, but it's probably a longer conversation. All of our curriculums are online. Everything's there. We have sample lessons. Our teachers, now with the instructional coaches, and we kind of went to a 2-house model, and with the curriculum and some of the other stuff that we're doing with the RTI and all the interventionists, I think we'll see a bigger push. I do invite you to meet with me, Ms. Shanklin, which is our Director of Curriculum Instruction. If you want to meet with us, we can definitely go over all that, and then you could come back at the next board meeting if you want and report on it. But I mean, I think it's a really longer conversation than here. But I just like I invite anyone else, just give me an email or a call or whatever, and we'll set something up if that you know. So I'm always open to hear everyone's ideas from different districts or whatever. I've offered that to a few people here already, so it's open to you as well. So.
Awesome, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I think that there's just sometimes there's a gap between community or parents and the school, and so trying to figure out,
right,
how we can.
Well, I totally agree. You coming here today is great, but again, we need more parents here, So I mean, any way you can bring 50 people next meeting, that'd be great. So we can all talk about it.
You kind of hit the nail on the head. That's one of the things that we worry about all the time. How do we really communicate that out there? But you're doing that right now, so thank you. It really is good. I hope I see you in the next meeting. Cool. Dr. Liz Massagia.
Brought up before the indoor facility. I had the opportunity finally a few months back to actually go see it, because my son plays baseball in town, and they were using it for practice with Joe Guardabosco and the kids. So I got a chance to go see it, and it is amazing. It's really beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you got to go see it, because, I mean, they even have that golf simulator. I'm no golfer, trust me. I have no motor skills, zero. I can stand and blink at the same time. That's about it. But they have, it's amazing. So if you haven't seen it, you have to go see it, because it's really wonderful. Today was the deadline to file petitions for board elections, and I did find out that while there will be 2 vacant seats, or 2 seats are up, I should say, there won't be 2 vacant seats, but there will be 2 seats are up for re-election. I know that one trustee has not put in his petition. So I would like to say to Frank Velez, thank you for everything that you have done in all the time that you have served as a trustee, for everything that you have given to the children of this district, because your contributions to help move our educational system forward has not gone unnoticed, nor has it gone unappreciated. And as a parent, a taxpayer, and as a candidate, I know I am very grateful to you. You are a role model for the kids. You are a role model for all of us, with the way that you show your concern for the kids and the educational system, and you are leaving very big shoes to fill, and it's a good thing I have big feet. And finally, Dr. Tomko, as a science teacher, I would be very remiss if I didn't tell you that you keep using osmosis, and osmosis is the movement of water. So
I taught science too, but I like the whole theory behind how it just happens.
But cut it out, because it's the movement of water.
It's true.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to close public participation?
Motion.
Second.
Anyone opposed? All right. We're going to go ahead and move on to board member reports. Mr. Velez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Dr. Massagia, for those words. One of the nicest things I've ever heard at a board meeting. I know that's not a shocker, but it's true. It's true. I did not put in petitions to run for re-election this year. And for me, it's about doing what's right and focusing my efforts on what I believe to be a continuation. And I'm not going to go too much into that, because this dais is not meant to be a political bully pulpit. it's meant to serve the school district. So I'll talk more about that on my own channels and my own social media. But what I do want to say, it's been beyond a privilege to serve as a trustee the last 2.5 years. And I'm going full throttle all the way until January 1st, 2024, when my term officially ends. And I'm just going full steam ahead. Trustee Velez is 110%. I've always been, and since January 4th, 2021 until January 1st, 2024, I'm 100% in. So I'm gonna keep it up. All the progress you've seen, we're gonna keep going. And I've just been privileged to work with a tremendous team of just amazing individuals on this board and some tremendous people who are no longer on this board, but who are real role models in our community, some of whom have shown to continue to come to these meetings, and some we had here tonight. So I do believe that being on the board is a privilege, and it's amazing to see always the candidates come every year. It shows that you really care, that you're taking the time out to put all your efforts to really this position. And I think anyone who comes on this board needs to be 100% committed to the children. And I think we have some terrific people here and some terrific people running. And I really look forward to seeing more progress, because I think there's so much potential in Belleville. We've done amazing things, but as long as we continue the progress and we don't allow individuals to take us backwards, that we will continue to really provide a great package here. Nothing's perfect, but we need to keep a forward-looking mentality. So thank you so much, and I just want to say thank you to everyone again for coming out tonight. I look forward to all the great things that we will continue to do here in Belleville. Thank you.
Trustee Jocko?
Thank you, Mr. President. Frank, you're talking like you're leaving. You're going down the street, down the hill over there. All right, well, I'm in operations and in the athletic committee. For operations, we had a meeting. It was discussed the pizza oven is in the works. The middle school HVAC is in the works. Playgrounds are being worked on at all elementary schools. The school four retaining wall is in the works. The high school HVAC is in the works. Greenhouse is in the works. The senior cafe is being worked on. As you can see, there's a lot of maintenance going on in our schools, the upkeep of the buildings, making sure everything is great for our students. Regarding athletics, Mr. Mara was there and he gave us a lot of information about recruiting checklists for our students to follow through the guidance office, through their course of action regarding following an athletic career. Because at the end of the day, it's important that our students that have different endeavors are also afforded those opportunities. Thank you to Mr. Mara and all the coaches and the staff helping to make sure that our students have progress. In regards to the strategic planning, I look forward to that. And thank you again, Dr. Tomko, for everything you do for our school district. I look forward to the next 5 years. If I'm up here or not, I'm still going to be in Belleville, right? So definitely, I look forward to those 5 years. I also handed in my petition today for re-election for the Board of Education. It's been a pleasure to serve this community, and I love our community. I had a request to make sure for our school lunches. I know that recently there has been different things that have occurred in the news regarding issues with meats or issues with different chemicals. I know, I'm just putting it out there, just making sure that we do our due diligence to check those packages or anything regarding we're serving our students or anyone here in our school district. So just making sure, just putting it out there, and also to hopefully have us at some point revisit busing. I hope everyone enjoys what's left of the summer and look forward to seeing you in the next meeting. Thank you.
Trustee Darrow?
Sure. Just for a little levity here, I realize I'm pretty quiet up here overall, but Mr. Sheldon, I was beginning to take it way too personally that you were not including me in your emails. So I'm glad we kind of straightened that out now. So please, it's just mike.darrow@bellevilleschools.org. Thank the IT department. They do a great job overall. I just got my nickname and not my proper name, so I would expect to hear from you in the future, though. So no matter what feelings overall exist in the community overall towards this Board of Education, I feel that we've been moving forward as a district. Should not stop now. I look forward to working with this rest of this board on the strategic 5-year plan as we are set to begin now moving forward. Now that we have the contracts negotiated for all entities, we can go forward now in a 5-year strategic look-ahead plan. It would be great. I think that we remain fiscally responsible enough as a district in order to renegotiate all these contracts, which we just did, and as you know, we passed them all. I always welcome those that would like to try to get in touch with me now that we know the right email address. Whether you agree or disagree on any topic, maybe I'm too quiet on this in social media, I certainly would welcome to hear anybody's opinion respectfully, either in person or via email. Please, if I walk to you in the street, you can also talk to me that way. I encourage you guys, whoever's left here today, have a great rest of your summer. We appreciate you coming out, and the group that was here earlier, thank you for all your support.
Trustee Williams?
Thank you, President Muniz. Good evening, everyone. To our faculty, staff, and students, I hope everyone is allowing themselves to rest, reflect, and reset this summer as a district. Staff, reflect on the past academic year. It's essential to practice self-reflection to grow in your practice, but it's equally important to celebrate your wins and the progress you've made this far. Families and students, please take this time to enjoy your summer, but also remember to prepare for the upcoming school year by supporting students to strengthen themselves in academic areas of need. It is my desire that all of us can work together to contribute to increased district performance while committing ourselves to our district's strategic plan. I look forward to seeing continued growth and consistency within our district. Thank you to everyone, and continue to have a healthy and safe summer.
Vice President Meany?
Yep, thank you. Wishing everyone a happy summer and hope you are enjoying it. Just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night here at the Belleville High School campus is the National Night Out from 5 to 9. So if you're not having a block party or don't know where one is, please bring the family out here. The district, along with the BOE, is hosting this great event, mainly the police department. So can't wait to join it, and I'm very excited. I'll keep an eye on and make sure that we're balanced with the grants, especially the municipal grant out of the DOT, so that we can collaborate together on getting the same things that we're all looking for with our safe routes and the Trees for Schools program. So that's it. I will see you at the next meeting in August. Thank you.
Great. And as for me, did I miss anyone? No, I think we're good. Missing one today. For me, I just want to congratulate everyone who was up tonight. I hope that you see this as a recognition on our behalf of our commitment to you as well, and we're grateful for all your efforts. As you can see, I really enjoyed tonight's meeting. I really did. Having the back and forth, the dialogue with everyone, having new faces here, and having new different conversations that we normally have. Really appreciate that. It brings a new context to these meetings, and it's very important. So thank you for showing up, and I really encourage everyone. I know. I've said this before, social media is a great outlet. It's a great place to put your thoughts out there, but it's really, it's not where you're going to get a solution to your concerns. This is it. You have a concern, bring it to our meeting, bring it to us directly. I'm one of those people that's guilty of not responding on social media. There's so many rules, so many regulations to us. It's almost, Jonathan will stand by me when I say it's better sometimes just not to speak until we can actually speak in an official capacity. So I encourage more people to come in. Please come by, whether you are happy with us, not happy with us, come get your message through, and we promise you we'll do the very best that we can for you. Ms. Jocko, you want to mention something real quick?
Yes, as I was going to let Gabby know, the Ecuador flag raising is going to be at Belleville City Hall from 1 to 3 p.m. on August 16. The whole community is invited. Thank you.
No problem. So once again, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I hope we didn't make anybody fall asleep in their chairs, but your time here is very much appreciated. You have a great night, and if I can have a motion to close our meeting.
Motion.
And second, all in favor? Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.